Thinking that far gets me genuinely excited. When I fought the dragon-head giant wolf, I used damage transfer for the first time, splitting that terrifying blow across every one of my ants at once. In that instant, the bond between me and my ants deepened enormously, and the bottleneck that had blocked me for so long loosened along with it. There is still real distance between that and a true breakthrough. Left to nothing but my own enlightenment, I have no idea how many months the last stretch would cost me. But the way the virtual training force field has already lifted my physical fitness and my spiritual power lights a small fire under me. Maybe strength comprehension answers to this thing just as well. I settle my body, take a deep breath, and lower myself into the center of the virtual training force field. The whole thing is built out of interwoven blue light beams, and the ground underneath is still the original floor, cold and hard and thoroughly unpleasant to sit on. I frown at how completely bare bones this force field is, and decide that once the experiment is over, I am going to decorate it. With the arrow already on the string, I push those small complaints aside, close my eyes, and go hunting for that vague sensation I felt when damage transfer fired in battle. It does not take long. My soul feels ready to slip out of my body, drifting into some deep and mysterious state. My whole being floats up into the clouds with no control left over my body or over time. An hour goes by with me still cross-legged and sealed shut, frowning at moments and other moments faintly smiling. A teleportation array rises not far from me. Light flickers, and a small figure steps out of it. 09 starts to say my name and stops, because one look at me tells her I have fallen into the precious state of enlightenment. She swallows the words she came here with and walks carefully to a spot just outside the light beams. Then she sits down cross-legged the same way I am, eyes shining as she watches me in silence. I feel as though I have become an ant. I live the complicated, simple daily round of the ants for what feels like uncountable years, and also for no longer than the brief span of a single ant life. Somewhere in that stretch, I come to understand everything about ants, every sensation they carry, every goal and every ideal that drives them. To break through into Tier 3, I have to consider myself an ant down in my own consciousness. I have to act entirely by the rules of ant behavior, with nothing human left in the way. As the mystical feeling drains out of me, I open my eyes, and my pupils have gone over completely into the crystalline structure that belongs to ants. The change does not hold long before human pupils return. Coming out of enlightenment feels like surfacing from several minutes underwater at the exact physiological limit a human can stand. I gulp air in huge greedy pulls, throwing everything I have into breathing, and only after a while does the suffocating pressure let go of my chest. My first act with my consciousness fully back is to check my own state, and what I find drags a look of shock and delight onto my face. One session and my comprehension of power has climbed that far. I have not truly stepped into Tier 3 yet, but I am absurdly close. Before I sat down, my comprehension of power stood at 50% of Tier 2. Now it stands at 90%. One single step, and I enter Tier 3, and once I stand in Tier 3, I can begin my breakthrough toward legendary rank. I do not even get up. I stay planted where I am and try to fall back into enlightenment, wanting to strike while the iron is hot. With a marvel like this force field, the gap into Tier 3 looks thin enough to jump. I force my agitation flat, calm myself down, and try again. It does not work. Several attempts, and I cannot reach that mystical state a second time. Maybe 2 attempts cannot be stacked this close together, or maybe the force field only bites hard on the first use of the day. There is no rush, so I set the question aside for later testing, and stand up, and standing up is when I get startled. A small figure is lying on the cold floor a short way in front of me, fast asleep. I hurry over and lift 09 up off the ground, feeling more than a little guilty as she blinks herself awake. I was entirely wrapped up in comprehending power, and completely blind to everything around me. On top of that, I was inside the force field while she was outside it, her senses scrambled by the blue light beams. That is why I never registered how long she had been sitting there. She rubs her eyes and asks me thickly whether I am finished. I apologize and admit I was too absorbed to notice she had arrived. Her own body has not fully recovered yet, and I was under for far too long, which is how the drowsiness caught her. There is also the simple fact that she is on my territory, where she feels safe enough to let her guard drop that far. Anywhere else, she would never have gone so muddled. I tell her the virtual training force field is monstrously powerful, and that I have already run experiments on physical fitness, spiritual power, and power enlightenment. Every effect came out far stronger than I had imagined. I add that enlightenment seems to only work properly on the first attempt, and that the point needs more verification before we treat it as fact. 09 nods gently and files all of it away, telling me the information is crucial and that she will run the effects on herself shortly. Then she walks straight into the light beams to begin. Her eagerness does not surprise me in the least, so I only smile and pick up my manual to check the time. 3 hours. 3 hours gone, and it felt like 1. This thing is good, but a person inside it loses all sense of the clock. And from now on, I am going to have to watch that. A long way off in the Dark World, two black islands of several dozen units each sit locked tightly together, grinding out the final decisive battle of their region. Roars and rumbles roll intermittently across the joined ground. At the very center, a blood-red figure, a man who looks assembled out of fresh blood, fights a burly man swinging a giant axe. Every time the axe lands, a massive gash opens in the blood figure's body. Injuries that would kill an ordinary man do nothing to him. Streams of blood rise from the beast and monster corpses littering the ground, pour into his wounds and repair him so completely that it is as if he was never struck at all. His ability is the manipulation of blood. The battlefield is carpeted with thousands upon tens of thousands of monster corpses, plenty of them large-bodied. The volume of blood held in that many bodies is astronomical, enough to replace the blood figure's entire frame hundreds of thousands of times over and still have surplus. Standing in a territory of blood with an ability like that, he ought to be untouchable. Yet the burly man with the giant axe wears a cold, calm expression and looks completely unaffected. He keeps raising the axe and keeps splitting the blood figure open, again and again, with a speed and a weight the blood figure cannot dodge. And the one who should be invincible is the one starting to look rattled. The blood figure shouts for 08 to stop right now, demanding to know whether he has lost his mind, whether he means to betray the organization, warning him the organization will never let him off. The burly man is Will, and the blood figure is 01. The member of the organization Will has been hunting for since he arrived, and an old acquaintance in the ugliest sense of the word. 01's codename sat far above Will's. His combat power always ran higher, and back at the base he bullied Will freely. He was also a trusted subordinate of the demonic instructor who drove Will's best friend to his death, which makes the feud between them one written in blood. That existence, powerful and well-connected in the organization, did not stumble after arriving in the Dark World. He mastered blood control and rose to become one of the two Black Island chiefs in his whole region, a man positioned to take the sole chief seat. Bad luck put him and Will in the same area. Will says nothing to the threat. He simply swings the blood-red twin axes in his hands, calm as a butcher, cleaving 01 into several pieces on each pass. 01 only manages a few words in the narrow window while his body knits itself back together. He shouts at 08 not to forget his identity, warning him that the instructor and the organization's high-ranking members are here in the Dark World. He insists that even here the organization remains the single most powerful existence, and he demands to know whether Will really means to stand against it. Before the last sentence finishes, Will cleaves him in half again, and he has to spend everything on repairing himself. 01 is enraged and humiliated in equal measure. Back on Blue Star, he never once took Will seriously. Will's combat power was far below his, and Will was a stubborn man who clashed with the instructor constantly. 01 recognized reality early and curried favor until he became the instructor's trusted hand. In his own eyes, he was the rising star. Even when the impossible happened and all of Blue Star transmigrated into the Dark World, his beliefs never wavered. He decided the upheaval was a tremendous opportunity, the turning point to bring the organization out of the shadows onto a public stage. Leaning on the combat training he had been given, he seized the initiative early, mastered an extremely powerful blood control ability, and made himself very nearly immortal. Across the whole Dark World, blood control is a formidable card to hold. He also re-established contact with the organization, learned how terrifying its current strength had become, and convinced himself he would end up a pivotal figure in this world. So when he first ran into Will, he arrogantly ordered him to surrender and become his vassal. Will did not waste a single word on the offer. He pulled out two blood-red giant axes and started hacking, and summoned thousands of mutated beasts to tear into the blood monster 01 conjured. 3 days and 3 nights later, every mutated beast and every blood monster is annihilated, and neither man has a winner's claim. The blood supply is effectively endless, but Will does not look like he can hold out much longer. 01, organization trained as he is, finds 3 days and nights of continuous dismemberment hard to stomach. That is why he is the one asking for a truce. He tells 08 that is enough, and that he is offering one last chance. With blood everywhere he can replenish forever and is completely immortal, and he asks how many swings Will has left. 1,000, 10,000. He declares that 08 has already lost, and the words appear to land, because Will stops mid-motion. Breathing hard, he stands there and quietly watches the man he just reassembled. A trace of smugness surfaces on 01's face at the sight. He lectures then, saying Will acted insubordinately and harbored thoughts of betrayal, that by rights he should kill him personally and report it back. But Will has developed this far and his strength is quite decent, so it would be a pity to let him die here. He offers terms instead. If Will kneels, begs for mercy, and voluntarily applies to become his vassal, then his life will be spared, and he had better be grateful for it. The Dark World is vast, and the organization has recruited many new powerful members. If internal competition were not getting so fierce, and if he did not need manpower right now, he would simply have executed Will for the offense. Will listens to the whole eloquent speech and gently shakes his head. Then he speaks to 01 for the first time, asking whether that was his last will, calling it boring, and telling him that he is no longer 08, that his name now is Will Porter. The last syllable is still in the air when Will launches at him at brutal speed. 01 snarls that he is courting death, that there is so much blood here he could be worn down and killed. Will ignores him and cleaves him in half. 01 starts to scoff about wasted effort and the words jam in his throat, because there is no blood left anywhere around him to absorb. His body cannot repair itself, and the wounds simply keep tearing wider. Disbelief floods his face, and before he can even work out what has happened, the two blood-red battle axes come down and dismember him into 1,000 pieces. Will looks at what is left of 01 and feels a satisfaction he cannot put into words. His expression never changes. He might have butchered a chicken rather than a mortal enemy. He reminds himself that 01 is the lowest-ranking existence in the organization, and that killing him is nothing to be proud of. This is only the beginning, and one day he will destroy the whole organization root and branch. He grips the blood-colored great axes tighter, a flicker of fire in his eyes, then looks at them with something close to affection and asks whether his old friends have had their fill. The twin axes are so crimson now they look wholly made of fresh blood, giving off an eerie and brutal weight that would chill an ordinary person just to look at. At the sound of his voice, they tremble a few times, as though they truly hold life. These are the bloodthirsty battle axes, the growth-type weapon Jang Hyun handed him back when they were both far weaker. The bloodthirsty battle axe craves blood, nourishes its master with what it drinks, and improves its own quality once it is absorbed enough. The more blood it takes, and the higher the grade of that blood, the faster it climbs. When Jang Hyun first obtained it, it was only gold rank, though at that time gold rank was top-tier equipment. The weapon suited Will's fighting style so completely that after it came into his hands he treasured it like a jewel, close to sleeping with it in his arms. Every hunt, he fought with it and let it drink. He even spent battle proceeds on high-quality monster blood to feed it. But the axe has principles of its own, and only fresh blood taken in combat evolves it quickly, while the blood of things already dead barely registers no matter how high the beast's rank. Through every method he could think of, Will only ever dragged it up to somewhere in mid-platinum, and legendary was not even a conversation. Then he ran into 01 and made a discovery. 01's ability was blood control. Every time Will drove the axe into him, the axe took a deep and satisfying pull. 01 held diamond rank strength, which meant every strike was absorbing diamond rank blood. And for a platinum rank weapon that is extravagant nourishment, each hit raising its power by a visible margin. What delighted Will more was the second order effect. 01 repaired himself by drawing in the surrounding beast blood, most of it well below diamond rank. Once that inferior blood had passed through his body and the axe bit into him again, what the axe drank came out as legendary rank blood. It was not free. 01 had to swallow enormous volumes to patch his wounds, so nothing was created from nothing and the law of conservation held. Even so, with his ability, he functioned as a high-grade blood purification machine, converting oceans of cheap blood into pure diamond-rank product. The moment Will understood that, the plan changed. He had come intending to kill 01 as fast as possible, but he knows exactly how powerful the enemies waiting behind this one are, and he knows what a machine like 01 is worth. So he bled him slowly instead, playing along for 3 days and 3 nights while the bloodthirsty battle axe drank diamond-rank blood without pause. 01 never suspected a thing, partly because the corpses on that battlefield were so numerous the blood felt inexhaustible, and no alarm ever rang in him. Will helped by looking worse and worse, wounds accumulating from 01's blood skills, fatigue mounting, a man on the edge of collapse. All of it was performance. Behind the taciturn, rugged surface, Will is meticulous, and nobody who was not meticulous survived that organization long enough to stand here. By the end, he had squeezed every drop of value out of 01 and treated him purely as an experience tool, and there was still unconverted corpse blood on the field when he finally stopped. The reason he stopped is simple. The bloodthirsty battle axe, forged on that much diamond rank blood, broke into diamond rank and then kept going, leaping to legendary rank in one bound. From platinum to legendary by what amounts to cheating, it has stopped being an ordinary sharp weapon and become a divine artifact capable of turning the tide of a decisive battle. After the breakthrough, Will restrained his strength and tried drinking from 01 again, and the gain was almost nothing. The man had no value left, and no more of Will's time was worth spending on him. He unleashed the full weight of a legendary rank axe and reduced 01 to smithereens. On the surface, it looks as though 01 was hacked to death. He was not. With blood control, he could have rebuilt himself from mince, an almost immortal thing. What actually killed him was being emptied, every drop in his body and every drop in the surrounding corpses, swallowed by the bloodthirsty battle axe, leaving nothing to replenish with. Without blood, he perished for good and cannot come back. With his death, his black island begins drifting toward Will's, devoured and merged piece by piece, and the sole victor of the region is decided. Will glances at the mangled flesh on the ground and pulls out a lighter that glows purple. He flicks it, and purple flames climb. Then he thinks for a moment, uses the storage ring on his hand to collect one large piece of the remains, and flicks the lighter again so the purple flame drifts down onto the rest. A blaze erupts and burns 01's flesh and blood clean off the world. Blood control strikes him as genuinely abnormal, and where revival is possible, caution is cheap. There is a biologist in Zhang Hyun's territory, and this small portion of material may be worth handing over to see what can be pulled out of it. Will wipes his bloody hands and takes out his manual. An avatar starts flashing on my manual, and I have to look twice. Will. I smile and answer him, telling him he has been out of contact for so long that I want to know where he disappeared to. He apologizes, says personal matters ate up his time, and that he made everyone worry. I laugh it off and tell him it is good he is back, and I leave it there. Everyone has their secrets, and even teammates should not be squeezed for what they do not want to give. Some sense of boundaries has to survive between people. Anyway, I am fairly sure that one day Will tell me himself. I ask if he wants to come over to my place. On his end, seeing that I did not press him about the missing days, he smiles too and replies that he cannot yet because he is a bit of a mess. Once he is cleaned up, we can set a time to meet and go over plans. He also asks whether everyone has finished their regional battles, offering to join in any time if someone is still fighting. I tell him everyone else is finished and that he is the last one in. That draws a quiet sigh of relief out of him, because if someone had been stuck in trouble and gone unhelped on his account, he would have carried it as a sin. With me around though, problems tend not to pile up that high. He says that is good, then mentions he has picked up something that might help my biologist vassal. It is chaotic where he is standing and he needs to clean up first, so he signs off. A trade request follows immediately, useful for a biologist, which means he means Wang Heon, but I cannot begin to guess what it is, so I accept with a puzzled face. What appears in front of me is a completely shriveled, blackened lump that could be tree bark or could be something carbonized. If I drop this on the side of a road, nobody would bend down for it. Still, Will has been unreachable for weeks, and this is not the kind of joke his personality allows. My trust holds, so I call over a sentry ant and tell it to deliver the thing to Wang Heon. It rears up on its hind legs, salutes crisply with its front pair, picks up the black mystery object, and vanishes out of sight in seconds. I watch it go, then watch 09 walking in and out of the virtual training force field with strange instruments, taking measurements, and a relaxed smile works its way onto my face. Every one of us has put down the chiefs in our respective areas, which buys a few days of genuine leisure. It is time to name a date for a gathering that is long overdue. I pick up the manual and start turning over which day works. Right then a message reaches me through the species contract, one of my ants reporting that the God King has sent another communication. The God King again. The man is persistent, and the frequency with which he contacts me is close to catching up with Will and the others. I shake my head, smiling, and fly toward the destruction dragon ant without any tension in my shoulders. What I took away from the fight with the dragon-head giant wolf was not just precious resources and items. It was the confidence that comes from climbing over a mountain that once looked unclimbable. A small god king with a few strange abilities, whose power level has not even reached legendary rank, does not deserve to be treated like a monster in my closet. I put on the destruction dragon ant vest and open the channel. The connection lands as a cool current running from head to toe, circulating once through the destruction dragon ant's body. Then the god king's voice comes through, ethereal and half unreal, thick with praise. He tells me I am very good, and that the destruction dragon ant truly lives up to being the genius on whom the sea placed great hopes. He says I did not disappoint him, and that I killed the ant thug who dared to offend him. He has evidently noticed that the tracking mark he left on me is gone. That was already part of the plan Baekhyun and I built together, and as the two people who chose the timing ourselves, we prepared our excuses in advance. To keep suspicion off us, Baekhyun deliberately staggered his own removal so the two marks did not vanish at the same moment. Imitating the way an ant thinks comes easily to me by now, so I answer plainly that I killed the thug and became the king of the area, and that his god's token was what let me catch up. He sounds satisfied. He says I am very good, and that the death white bear is good as well, a rare talent even if he was a little slower than me in putting down the other thug. He adds that the two of us not only killed our targets but both became the first chief of our entire respective areas. Neither of us has disgraced the name of his alliance of gods. Then he pauses, and something almost wistful slides into his voice. He declares that clear rewards and punishments are the foundation of the alliance of gods. Since the two of us have rendered meritorious service, he shall naturally reward us. That gets me a little excited, and I will not pretend otherwise. An unexpected windfall and resources squeezed out of an enemy for free always feel better than 10 or 100 times as much earned by my own sweat. So I sit there quietly anticipating, and the God King announces that he shall bestow upon me and upon the death white bear each an avatar of his own origin. He explains that at critical moments he can possess us and assist in battle, which practically amounts to handing us an extra life. He orders us to be grateful. Across the entire alliance of gods, the members who have ever received this honor numbered no more than a handful, and we are about to join them. He talks a fine game. I expected a treasure and got this instead. I have seen the God King's so-called origin avatar before, back when I killed Noesio, one of his subordinates, and watched him use the ability firsthand. I know precisely what happens once that avatar is planted and then activated, because everything I am becomes his nourishment. It is a vicious little gift. I need a way to refuse it, since letting a thing that tricky touch me is out of the question. But a blunt refusal ends my undercover career on the spot. That would be like an officer who finally works his way into the elite ranks of a gang, then walks back to his own precinct with nothing to show for it. So I hesitate, and I can feel the God King's patience thinning on the other end. Then a message reaches my main body through the species contract. One of my ants tells me I can agree, because she thinks she can try. I know instantly which ant sent it, and my shoulders come down. I get ready to accept the origin avatar. Before I can speak, the God King's patience snaps, and he asks coldly whether I mean to refuse this honor. Suspicion, sharp and immediate. I react fast, insisting that of course not, that I was simply too excited to answer, and that I am honored to accept this glory. After that, the God King goes silent, as though he has left the channel entirely. I do not loosen my guard by a fraction. I sit calm and wait. A full 3 minutes pass before his voice comes back through the god's token. He approves, telling me the Destruction Dragon Ant has made the correct choice. Then he calls it a pity that the Death White Bear foolishly refused the same honor, and adds that it does not matter, since this lord has already given him the appropriate punishment. He orders me to continue standing by and says this lord will notify me when there is news. The light on the Destruction Dragon Ant's god's token dims away, and a faint golden mark forms out of thin air on the ant's body, identical to the one I saw in Noesio. The God King is gone, but my mind stays on the words he left behind. Baekhyun refused, and the God King took action against him for it, which most likely means Baekhyun is out of the game entirely. That thought startles me for a second before the logic settles. With methods as strange as the God King's, anyone without a countermeasure prepared in advance would be insane to let his avatar ride them. Even when the body on offer is only a substitute, the risk sits far too high to gamble on. I release control of the Destruction Dragon Ant and reach through the species contract for the Ant Queen Bright Mirror. I ask whether the message she sent was serious, whether she really can deal with the God King's origin avatar. Bright Mirror is my spiritual power specialist, and she is the reason I had the nerve to say yes at all. She answers with complete confidence. The origin avatar is itself a form of spiritual power, the purest and most important the God King owns, and anything made of spiritual power is something she can devour. To her, that avatar is not a threat, it is a tonic. That gets a smile out of me, because my ants never exaggerate. If Bright Mirror says it, the certainty behind it is absolute. I tell her that settles my nerves, but that it is not yet time to fall out with the God King. I still need to lie low and find his true location first. All the same, the avatar cannot be left running loose, because a potential disaster is still a disaster. So I decide the Destruction Dragon Ant will simply live in Bright Mirror's nest, and the instant that Mark shows any activity, she deals with it. She answers that she will, and that she will keep a very close eye on him. With her on it, I am at ease. I send the Destruction Dragon Ant straight to the 3rd floor of the Hall of Knowledge to take up residence. It is worth saying that the clear ants Bright Mirror has been cultivating have fought in a great many battles alongside the team by now. They never kill anything directly. What they do is throw several kinds of spiritual power interference across the enemy line, which raises the killing efficiency of my other ants enormously and cuts our casualties down. I want Bright Mirror to keep cultivating them, and not only for the God King, because the clear ants have become a daily fixture of how we fight. I am still turning that over when a teleportation request from Baekhyun comes through. I approve it, and a moment later he arrives beside me through the array with grief and outrage all over his face. He wails that he is finished and curses that phony god up and down. I already know exactly what happened, so I smile and ask whether he refused the origin avatar and got kicked out for it. Then I tell him not to worry, because I am still here and the God King will not stay smug forever. I will collect the debt for him when the time comes. Baekhyun cuts off his own wailing mid-breath and stares at me, asking how I already know, and whether that phony god told me himself. I nod and say the God King came to me as well, offering an origin avatar as a reward, and that I did not refuse, which is when he let slip that Baekhyun had. That makes Baekhyun anxious. He points out that the God King's abilities are all strange, and that his origin avatar has to be stranger still. He asks whether I am not afraid of letting the man pin a thing like that to my aunt, since from there he could trace the thread back to me. He would rather we skip the risk and simply destroy the avatar. I shake my head and tell him not to worry, because I know what I am doing. My clear ants happen to eat spiritual power for a living, and the God King's origin avatar is a great tonic for those little ones. He will not be stirring up anything. Seeing how relaxed I am, Baekhyun lets out a long breath and allows that if I have a way to handle it, then there is no problem. Then he groans that had he known, he would have agreed too. That phony god pressed him so hard that he hesitated for one heartbeat, and the offer was pulled and his substitute blown up on the spot. I echo the phrase back at him, unsure whether he is exaggerating, though the God King did mention delivering a punishment, and I have been curious what shape it took. Baekhyun spreads his hands helplessly and confirms it, and clarifies that what actually exploded was his substitute's brain. He calls that phony god ruthless because any intelligent creature taking a hit like that would be an idiot the instant it landed. Fortunately, his substitute never had a brain to begin with, so blowing it up accomplished nothing at all. What it did cost him is the meeting, since he can no longer attend, and the god's token he had attached to the substitute white bear drilled itself into a small black hole that opened out of nowhere once the white bear came apart and disappeared. He has no idea what method the God King used to reel that token back in, though it is probably how he retrieves the spiritual power he has invested in his hosts. Baekhyun sighs, then smiles as he explains the rest. He had wanted to intercept the token on its way out, but intercepting it would have proven his white bear was a fake. To stop that phony god from thinking too hard and turning suspicion toward me, he barely obstructed it at all, and let the mark teleport away clean. He adds that his substitute white bear never carried much spiritual power to speak of, so even in the God King's hands, the thing is worth almost nothing to him. I look at Baekhyun with real approval. He is flamboyant, but at the moments that matter, he is reliable. He is right too. If he had grabbed that token, the God King would have started wondering about the man who joined the Alliance of Gods on the same day he did. The two of us also took the thug-killing mission together, and enough coincidences stacked in a row stop being coincidences. I tell him it is fine because I am still standing, and as for the God King, I will adapt as the situation moves. Nobody knows what the Dark World is going to change into next, so it is unlikely we run into the man again soon. Then I pause and smile because there is better news to give him. I tell him the virtual training force field is up and running, and that I have already tested it with very good effect. Since he is already standing here with nothing urgent on his plate, he may as well try it and see for himself. The words legendary rank item light his eyes up and blow his sulk away in one gust, and he says excitedly that he loves new experiences and wants to know where it is right now. I lead the way. 09 is still circling the force field, running her tests. Baekhyun slows his pace, leans in close, covers his mouth with one hand, and whispers that 09 looks very busy, wondering whether now is really an appropriate time and offering to come back later. He starts to edge away as he says it. I catch him by the arm before he can escape and tell him there is no such thing as appropriate here, because his timing is perfect. Then I haul him over to 09 and remind her, smiling, that she wanted somebody cultivating inside the field for proper data. I tell her I have brought her one. She glances up, looks Baekhyun over once and says flatly to send him in. He looks between the two of us with an utterly bewildered expression, working out that he is the guinea pig, right up until he is pushed through the light beams. I settle into the office sofa chair with a cup of the world tree tea leaves Cheongha supplies me with. Lucky that Baekhyun walked in when he did, because otherwise the volunteer would have been me. 09's experiment is not a matter of grabbing whoever is nearest either, since the higher the subject's rank, the more accurate and useful the data. Baekhyun may not match me in strength, but he is a genuine diamond rank player and perfectly suited to the job. I have only trained in the force field once so far. Strength comprehension was the outlier that 8 hours, while everything else took barely 10 minutes a session, and even so the effect beat a full day of hard training. Effective as it is, the thing still demands that a person act within his limits. Body and spiritual power both need real rest before the next round of training can land properly, and swallowing medicine cannot substitute for what natural recovery does. Sitting there turning it over, the shape of the advantage is clear. The force field lets me hit the daily ceiling of what my body can endure in a tiny fraction of the time, and the decay of the training effect is very slow. At minimum, it will carry me through the breakthrough to legendary rank, and even past that, it will still be handing me solid gains. Exactly what a legendary rank item should do. At the next gathering, I intend to put Cheongha and Will inside it as well, because there are big changes coming and none of us can afford to waste the window. I keep getting a strange premonition. I cannot explain it, and it has grown more distinct ever since Bright Mirror came to me and broke through into diamond rank. Sometimes it is nothing but a feeling, an intuition with no evidence attached, and yet I hold an odd certainty about how the thing it points at will turn out. Maybe Bright Mirror strengthened my spiritual power far enough to wake something like a sixth sense, a precognition for danger. I shake my head at myself and let it go, because it is not solidified into an actual skill and everything past that is guessing. The manual chirps a run of crisp notes, and I pick it up. Cheongha. She tells me she is awake, that little tree filled her in on everything, and she thanks me for driving off the enemy while she was unconscious. She adds that while she was under, little tree also led her vassals and her plants on a sweep of the whole territory for resources. The haul was good, and some of it might interest me. She tells me I am welcome to come by whenever I have the time. Relief goes through me and a smile with it, and I answer that it is good she is awake and that I am free right now, so I will come straight over. I snap my fingers at the empty space in the middle of my office, and a teleportation array blooms across the floor. I rise off the sofa chair and leap over the tea table into it without visible effort. The air on the other side is fresh, extremely fresh, the kind that makes one breath feel like it could scour every impurity out of a body. So I take several deep ones before opening my eyes, and I tell Chung-ha the air here is incredible, that it even carries a fragrance, and that every lungful leaves me lighter. When I came while she was unconscious, the smell in this territory was thoroughly unpleasant, and now it has finally recovered. A familiar woman in a green dress is standing about 2 meters in front of me, her pretty face flushed. 2 meters is very close. With the lung capacity I carry now, those deep breaths did not only take the air around my own head, and Chiunga is fairly sure her own scent went with it. Embarrassing does not begin to cover it, since it is obvious I did not do it on purpose. All she can manage is a helpless smile. She tells me that thanks to me she came through this, and that without it she might genuinely have fallen. The enemy's poison was potent enough to kill off most of her plants, and even Little Green could not withstand it. Then she mentions that Little Tree found the enemy's warehouse in the territory, along with the laboratory where he brewed his poisons. There are things inside she cannot judge the value of, and I might be able to. A laboratory for configuring poisons. That stops me for a beat. And then I think of Wang Heon. When I handed him the corpse of the mammoth war elephant with its biological toxins, he showed real interest in the toxin side of it. Wang Heon being interested in something means Wang Heon can pull results out of it. So I tell Chung-ha it should have some use, and that I will not stand on ceremony. She smiles and says those are only the basic items, that she harvested plenty of resources in the battle as well, and that I should take more of those too. Then she leads the way to her warehouse. The warehouse sits southwest of the World Tree, and its exterior is like nothing else. The walls are made entirely of tall living trees standing shoulder to shoulder. The roof is woven from interlaced branches and leaves, with vines filling the gaps. The whole structure covers several thousand square meters, and the trees composing it number over 1,000, which is a genuinely massive project. On Blue Star, a thing like this would have counted as a wonder. I look it over with open admiration and ask how much effort it must have taken to plant that many big trees one at a time. She pauses slightly, then explains with a smile that it was not troublesome at all. She used a skill to vitalize the trees and simply had them walk over here themselves, which means a warehouse like this takes under half a day to raise. After that, vines bound across every gap block out rain effectively enough that even a heavy downpour never reaches the interior. She has also hung the inside with plenty of lamp fruits so the place stays bright at night. I agree that it is convenient, and follow her in. Inside, rows of lamp fruits in every color light the whole interior up in a kaleidoscope, closer to the neon of a nightclub than the inside of a supply depot. It leaves me faintly puzzled, because Chung-ha's aesthetic taste should not be that unconventional. Most likely she is simply a pragmatist who never gave the color scheme a second thought. She misses my strange look entirely and points to the left half of the warehouse. She tells me those are the resources recovered from the territory of the Lord we just put down, and that I can take all of it. I follow her hand and find the entire left half, thousands of square meters of it stacked high. That much material would fetch a sky-high price on the trade channel. Then again, this was the accumulated wealth of a Black Island chief holding dozens of units, so the volume is not actually abnormal. I stare at it for a moment and shake my head, because it is too much. I killed the chief, but she contributed to that fight too, and these resources equal half of everything in her area. I ask her how she is supposed to develop if I clean the place out. 1/3 is my counteroffer. She sees I am firm and stops pushing, telling me to choose for myself and take whatever is useful, and adding that this time I am not allowed to decline. She says the materials from the biological virus laboratory are stored separately in several large boxes along the inner side, all clearly marked, and I can carry those back with the rest. I nod and tell her that in that case I will not be polite about it. Even 1/3 of this is a terrifying quantity, and there is no version of me moving it alone. Labor, however, is the one thing I have never lacked. I tap the spirit nurturing jar at my waist. 10 hover ants, 50 black scythe hunting ants, and 100 sentry ants materialize outside the warehouse, with swift shadow arriving alongside them. The hover ants handle transport, the black scythe hunting ants handle hauling, and the sentry ants handle the searching and sorting, picking out what is actually worth taking. Swift shadow takes overall command. I tell her to select 1/3 of the suitable resources, load them, and run them home, and not to leave those large boxes on the inner side behind. She answers at once and starts directing the work with obvious relish. The sentry ants analyze the piles item by item, laying pheromone marks on everything flagged for transport, and the black scythe hunting ants load the marked goods onto the hover ants. The whole operation runs orderly and fast. Xiongha watches my ants work with visible envy and says they are so much more useful than what she has. She can vitalize plants into labor now that the ability is hers. But vitalized plants move rigidly and carry almost no intelligence. Only the tree spirits have real minds, and there are far too few of them. I tell her not to take it hard, because every path of power comes with its own advantages. Then I ask, since she has fully merged and devoured this chief's black island, whether she has taken over as vassals as well, and whether there are many of them. The smile drains off her face at the question, and she goes quiet. I am taken aback for a second before I understand, and then I have to sigh. These chiefs truly stop at nothing when power is on the table, which puts them on the same footing as beasts. Killing that one was not a mistake. If anything, I let him die far too easily. Xiongha shakes her head gently and says, all we can do is take care of our own and treat the people under us well. We simply do not have the capacity to care for everyone else. I sit with that in silence for a while before answering in a low voice. I tell her these chiefs run wild because nothing restrains them and nothing deters them. When we are strong enough and our names carry far enough, we will be able to put out word and establish rules. I am confident a great many people will suddenly discover their own self-control. Xiongha looks at me for a long moment and smiles, saying that day will come, and that we should work toward it together. The heaviness in the air lifts a little, and the two of us go back to watching the ants move goods. The 10 hover ants fill up quickly, and these are diamond rank hover ants, each one able to swallow an enormous load. Crammed full, they still leave some resources behind, but the split was a decision we made casually, so I do not spend attention on it. I pack every ant back into the spirit nurturing jar, then turn and tell Xiongha the goods are loaded and I am heading home. Her territory has just come out of a major battle, and it will take several days to repair. I also mention that all of us have now finished our regional conflicts, and suggest that once everyone is tidied up for a day or two, we gather again. She agrees, then says it has been a long time since we were all in one room and she wonders how everyone is doing now. I tell her she will know when she sees them, and I guarantee she will be surprised. A few surprises in particular will be an enormous help to her. She asks what they are, curiosity all over her face. I tell her she will find out at the gathering, then step into the teleportation array and vanish before she can press. I come home loaded down. The hover ants put everything into the warehouse, and I message Tak Mungyil to go count and organize the haul. As for the biological virus laboratory materials, I crack the boxes open and find sealed bottles and jars I cannot make sense of, so I call Wang Qian over and hand the whole miscellaneous pile to him. His expression when he sees it is 10 times more excited than if I had put a legendary rank item in his palms. He has the ants carry his treasures off to his office with a delighted face. He insists on hauling a medium-sized box himself, clutching it with both arms, sweating hard, his glasses sliding down his nose with no free hand to fix them. The sight makes me smile. Whatever those things are, they are clearly excellent treasures in Wang Qian's eyes, and I hope he pulls results out of them, preferably a new species of ant. I already command a great many ant types, and I have never once thought I had too many. More types means more situations covered, and beyond that, my own strength is fed back to me from the ants through the Lord's heart. The quality and the quantity of the ants both matter enormously, but every additional species adds an extra ceiling to how far I can grow. Weighed together, the answer is always the same. The more ants, the better. Day rolls into night, and a full day slips past. I contact a few people and we agree to meet for dinner 2 days from now. 3 days have gone by since everyone wrapped up their battles, so full recovery is not in question. And by now, the bulk of the territorial paperwork should be handled as well. Nothing is urgent anymore. My own days are both full and unhurried. I spend time in the virtual training force field working my spiritual power and physical fitness, while helping 09 gather her data, and nothing else demands my attention. Bored, I go and patrol the territory, and the day ends that way. The new day starts with me waking naturally and stretching out in bed. The manual says 6 o'clock sharp in the morning. My internal clock is honestly too good, and the error has never exceeded a minute. 2 days remain before the gathering, and with nothing pressing on either of them, I plan to keep training and take a proper break. Staying tense forever is bad for a person, and leisure this rare deserves to be used. I get dressed, eat breakfast, and head for the force field. A message from Bright Mirror reaches me first. She reports that the number of diamond-ranked tribesmen has passed 100. The vassals I assigned to her have helped set up the initial framework of the spiritual network. So the spiritual network world already has basic functions running. She says it still lacks a terminal consciousness receiving device, because only with one of those can my vassals project their consciousness inside. The spiritual network. Already built. I stop dead for a second, excitement flooding my face, and my feet change direction away from the force field and toward the Hall of Knowledge. I tell her to wait, that I am coming right over, and she answers that she is on the 3rd floor. I float through the air at speed, thinking as I go. After that string of major battles, I had all but forgotten the ability Bright Mirror unlocked when she hit Diamond rank. The spiritual network lets clear ants release spiritual fluctuations across the nearby space, weaving a network where any creature close enough can project its consciousness inside and interact with the others there. On Blue Star, that would have been virtual reality technology, the sort of thing that only existed in novels. For my vassals, it opens a whole channel of leisure, entertainment, and communication, which raises both the efficiency of talking to each other and the general happiness of my subjects. More importantly, every vassal who spends time socializing inside the spiritual network world sheds spiritual power that the clear ants can consume. That is enormous for Bright Mirror and her tribe, because it means their growth stops depending on resources I have to find, and starts depending on my own population enjoying itself. The more I think about it, the more excited I get, until my speed turns into a streak of light, and I land on the 3rd floor of the Hall of Knowledge. Bright Mirror is not alone up here. Several people are with her, the ones who assisted with the actual content of the spiritual network, and they call out to their lord the moment they see me. Takmungiel recruited all of them, and back on Blue Star, every one of them lived and breathed online games, some as designers at game companies, and some as veteran hardcore players. They have contributed a mountain of valuable suggestions to the construction of the spiritual network world. Their personal strength, on the other hand, is thoroughly ordinary. It is only in my territory that the weakest can still make a living. In another lord's domain, they would have been fed to mutated beasts long ago, or used as slaves, or spent as experimental consumables. I am no philanthropist either. In my territory, they never worry about food or clothing, but their status is not high. If this project had not needed exactly their expertise, they would probably never have stood in front of me at all. So seeing me here has them trembling with excitement, eyes wet, close to fainting where they stand. I tell them they have all worked hard and that the ongoing operation and expansion of the spiritual network world will depend on their help. They should not forget to claim their rewards from Takmungiel. If what he hands them does not match what they put in, they can come to me anytime. They stumble over themselves, answering that the honor is theirs and that Supervisor Tak is always fair and would never shortchange anybody, promising to keep working hard. I encourage them briefly and walk on toward Bright Mirror, and behind my back the designers are flushed and glowing, whispering among themselves in a rush of disbelief. They marveled that their lord actually spoke to them. A man who's standing here matches a high-ranking national official back on Blue Star. They were nothing but ordinary game obsessives, and he did it without a shred of arrogance. Among themselves, they agree that this place truly earns the name City of Dreams, where people who worked in online games can find a place of their own. Nobody back home would believe them if they said this was the dark world. I let the whispering go and walk straight up to Bright Mirror. Smiling, I ask whether the spiritual network world really has been built out to a usable state, and whether I can experience it. Her body is almost fully transparent now, and she answers softly that there is absolutely no problem. If my spiritual power is strong enough, and there's a diamond rank clear ant within 10 kilometers, I can enter directly, and all it takes is projecting my consciousness into the spiritual network. I do not step in immediately, because a condition like that has a shadow attached to it. I ask her what happens for someone whose spiritual power does not meet the standard. Spiritual power as heavy as mine is rare, and among my vassals it is rarer still. If the entry requirement is set high, only a handful of people will ever get inside. The spiritual network world becomes an expensive toy for a tiny elite, most of its usefulness stripped away. Bright Mirror confirms the threshold is considerable. Anything that enters keeps burning spiritual power the entire time it is inside, so a creature with too little of it risks real harm. I frown and ask how the problem gets solved. Because a world only a small number can enter is a world that barely functions. She answers immediately that she has already worked out a solution. An auxiliary tool has to be created, something that carries vassals whose spiritual power falls below the line across the threshold anyway. Building it, however, will require 09's help. 09 again. I have no idea how her mechanical work and Bright Mirror's spiritual work are supposed to combine into anything, and the confusion only deepens the longer I chew on it. But I hold to one principle without fail, which is that professional matters belong to professionals, and interfering in what I do not understand only makes it worse. So I stop chewing on it and tell Bright Mirror I will go find 09 right now. 09 is where I left her, buried in the data from the virtual training force field. I explain the situation, and she pauses her work with a spark of interest, pointing out that a portion of her data has to be recorded continuously and does not need her physically present. She tells me to leave the matter to her. She agrees so readily that I cannot help smiling as I thank her and hand the whole thing over. She nods lightly and activates the instrument standing at the four corners of the force field. Then she turns and follows me toward Bright Mirror, leaving the room to the steady patter of machines writing down numbers. One day later, I am walking fast toward the mechanical workshop I built for 09 with a grin I cannot flatten. She informed me it was finished in a single day. Ever since she advanced to legendary rank, her manufacturing has climbed to a completely different level, and her efficiency has gone up more than tenfold. The workshop door stands half open when I arrive, and I push it the rest of the way. 09 is standing in the center of the room with her back to me, studying a 10-story shelf 7 or 8 meters tall, quietly examining what is on it. Those have to be the tools, the ones that will carry vassals with weak spiritual power into the spiritual network world. I walk over to her side and follow her gaze up the shelves. What is sitting there is not what I expected. Simple-looking mechanical helmets, glasses with oversized lenses, and metal pieces shaped like bracelets. My face goes odd because these look uncannily like the gaming helmets and gaming glasses out of the online game novels I used to read back on Blue Star. Hearing me, 09 pulls herself out of her focus, walks to the shelf, takes down a mechanical helmet and tosses it to me. She confirms these are all entry tools and explains that the differences run deeper than their shapes. She starts with the virtual helmet, which is the most cumbersome of the three. A creature entering through a virtual helmet experiences a world at only 80% realism. The signal quality is poor, and the range is limited to 1 kilometer from a clear ant. She has already produced an initial run of 500. I turn the helmet over in my hands and nod, working out loud that using one basically confines a person to a few gathering points across the territory. My Black Island stands at a massive 140 units now, and my clear ants number only 200, so there is no possibility of spreading them evenly across all of it. In practice, a virtual helmet works in the underground cities, where the clear ants are concentrated, and nowhere else. 09 agrees, but points out the compensating advantage, which is that helmets are easy to manufacture and cheap. In the early stages, they will do most of the work of pushing the spiritual network world out to the vast majority of my vassals. I agree completely, because mass adoption matters more than polish at this point, and only once vassals are used to the world will they start wanting higher-end equipment. Then I ask what the glasses and the bracelet do differently. She goes back to the shelf, takes down a pair of glasses in one hand and a bracelet in the other, and hands both to me. She explains that the virtual glasses reach up to 5 kilometers, and that they also carry a communication function, letting the wearer call anyone else who owns a pair. Communication is a genuinely practical addition. I have supplied the territory with communication ants, but some of their performance is still too primitive and the experience is poor, whereas mechanical creations suit this particular job much better. I tell her, smiling, that we finally have mechanical phones and that the communication ants can retire in favor of glasses. Then I ask why simple communication took her this long to solve. She shakes her head gently and explains that Blue Star communication devices and the signals they run on are simply not suited to this environment. The glasses may look like a purely mechanical achievement, but the communication function actually rides on the spiritual network my ants built, and that is what carries the signal. Then she adds that if I plan to use one of these personally, she does not recommend the glasses at all. She points to the bracelet sitting in my right hand. The bracelet makes calls as well, and its range for entering the spiritual network world reaches 10 kilometers. On top of that, it handles basic functions like text messages, which puts it well ahead of the glasses. Interested now, I set the glasses aside and fasten the virtual bracelet onto my wrist, and the cool metal against my skin feels good. Following her instructions, I push a thread of spiritual power into the bracelet. The bearish trace is enough to activate it, and my consciousness drops into the spiritual network world. The whole place has been designed like a large-scale online game, with a novice village, several cities, residential districts, and entertainment zones, and calling it a second home is not an exaggeration. Only part of it has been built so far. And even so, the space is staggeringly vast, easily able to hold 10,000 people at once. I pull my consciousness back out and, still following 09's guidance, test the calling function and the messaging function. These were features on outdated phones back on Blue Star. Here in the Dark World, they are an enormous gain, especially between vassals, and between me and my vassals, since vassals have no manual of their own. I nod, satisfied, and tell her the bracelet's functions are excellent and the glasses are quite good too, then ask roughly how their manufacturing costs compare. She answers softly that the virtual glasses cost 3 times what a virtual helmet costs, which is why she only made 100 of them. The virtual bracelet costs 10 times a helmet, so she made 10. That much of a gap makes my brow furrow. I had been planning to put a virtual bracelet on every subject as fast as possible, since bracelets are convenient to carry and perform far better than the alternatives. Now it is clear I have to let the situation mature first, and my subjects will simply have to be patient. Then I stop. That is not right at all. Why should supplying my subjects with equipment to log into the spiritual network world be my responsibility in the first place? I have handed them a wildly entertaining second home. If they want better hardware to enjoy it with, they can work, earn, and trade contribution points for it. A relaxed smile spreads across my face at the thought. Tak Moon Yul has clearly corrupted me, but he is right, and they should stand on their own feet, so the whole business of distributing virtual equipment goes to Moongil as well. Mind made up, I ask 09 about the other half of the problem. The materials are one issue and the manufacturing process is another, and I want to know whether it needs anything special. She nods gently and says that part is easy, and that she will set up a few production lines for me. With her robots running them, all I have to do is recruit some line workers. That is a relief. This first batch of 500 helmets, 100 pairs of glasses, and 10 bracelets was crafted entirely by her own hands. I had been quietly worried these devices could only ever come from her, since she is busy enough without churning out small hardware forever. If production lines cover it, there is no problem at all. If there is one resource I have in abundance, it is people. Were it not for the last few chiefs I ran into being vicious enough to leave me almost no vassals, the population of my territory would already have crossed 100,000. As it stands, I am just over 3,000 people short of that mark, which is a genuine pity. That shortfall is the only thing holding my glory level frozen where it has sat for far too long. Hopefully the end of the Vortex event opens up other ways to supplement the population. I tell 09 I am going to find someone to hand these devices to, and remind her that tomorrow is the agreed gathering time and not to forget it. She says she knows. I wave, sweep several hundred virtual devices off the shelves into my storage ring, say goodbye, and walk out of the workshop. Then I contact Tak Moongil and dump the entire haul I extracted from 09 onto him. Tak Moongil takes anything I assign him seriously, which is exactly why he does not simply stock the devices in the territory warehouse for subjects to buy freely. He issues an announcement first. The spiritual network world, Second Home, is about to enter closed beta testing, and a batch of closed beta subjects is now being recruited. The top 100 subjects in the current territory contribution ranking will receive virtual equipment outright along with beta access. Subjects who miss out should not lose heart, because next week the top 100 in newly added contribution will also earn qualification. Slots are limited, so the opportunity should be treasured. The territory detonates. Nobody can believe a virtual reality world exists here, and somebody scoffs that in Lord Jonghyun's City of Dreams nothing has ever been impossible. The rest are half envious of the top 100 and half already sprinting for next week's slots, swearing the qualification is theirs alone. The whole place is jubilant. My residents face almost no threat to their lives anymore, and once bellies are full and bodies are warm, appetite turns toward other things, which makes a spiritual luxury like this almost unbearably tempting. Plenty of subjects are still watching from the sidelines, but the number who have started grinding contribution points purely to win a beta slot is already absurd. The territory is a tank of sluggish fish with a predator dropped into it, every last one of them suddenly in motion. Watching that enthusiasm, I cannot help laughing at how easily Moongil stirred the whole population up. Entrusting this to him means I never have to think about it again. With Tak Moongil running it, I have become a completely hands-off manager, and I put the spiritual network world out of my mind and go back to training my body and my spiritual power. Another day goes by in a blink. This is the day the 5 of us agreed to gather. Evening comes on and the sky darkens by degrees, and as the appointed hour closes in, one teleportation array after another blooms to life inside my wizard tower. 09 is already standing beside me when the others begin arriving, and Baekhyun comes through the fastest, with Will and Seungha landing almost together. 5 of us in one room again, after far too long apart. Baekhyun sweeps his eyes over the group and remarks that it has genuinely been a while. He points out that he and 09 and I cross paths often enough, while Seungha and Will have both been ghosts lately. Will shakes his head and apologizes for making everyone worry, admitting he ran into some awkward situations recently. Seungha cuts the reunion short with a smile, points out how late it is, and suggests we sit down and talk over food. Then she asks whether I already have the meal ready. Of course I do. I tell her a gathering this long delayed deserves better than leftovers, and that I had people preparing the ingredients yesterday, so we can eat and talk at the same time. The group trades smiles and follows me out of the hall with obvious anticipation. Every one of them now commands an entire large region as its chief, with no small number of vassals underneath, and more people always means more talent. Each of them has highly skilled master chefs on staff, so none of them eats badly on any ordinary day. The anticipation has nothing to do with my kitchen being better. Dining at my place simply means the 5 of us are in the same room, and that makes the atmosphere worth the trip. I lead them onto the teleportation array that runs from the wizard tower down to the underground city, and a few minutes later we step out into the banquet hall. Attendants are already lined along both sides of the entrance, waiting to greet us, and they call out together that they welcome their lord and his guests, and that dinner is ready. I nod and thank them for their work, then tell them to have the kitchen start serving. One of them answers with far too much excitement and hurries off. I take the group to their seats, and almost before we are settled, attendants in black professional attire come through with trays. The table fills fast, dish after dish that none of them has ever seen, every one of them perfect in color and aroma and taste. Baekhyun needles me about how professional my kitchen must be to plate this quickly, then asks whether any of it happens to be pre-made. Back on Blue Star, before we were all dragged here, technology had already blown straight through the catering industry, and half the restaurants were reheating factory food. Calling it unhealthy was never quite fair. Calling it flavorless usually was. I know he is joking, so I answer in the same register. I tell him I would hardly entertain guests with reheated trays, and besides, the dark world has no mature pre-made supply chain, so even a man who wanted that food could not get it. Every head chef and assistant chef in my kitchen deliberately chose abilities suited to cooking, and working in concert they can turn a banquet out in minutes. I add that the ingredients on the table run at least platinum rank, with a good number of them at diamond rank. Then I ask Baekhyun whether he can guess where the main dish came from, and I lift the lid on the covered serving dish at the center of the table. The aroma that rolls out is so rich and so heavy that it swallows the scent of the other 20 dishes whole, and surprise moves across every face. Baekhyun cannot identify the creature by taste or smell, but he does not need to, because he puts my words and the sheer presence of that meat together in a couple of seconds. His eyes light up and he asks whether this is the dragon-head giant wolf we brought down, a legendary rank creature, and whether I actually put it on a plate. Then he laughs and says he has never once eaten a dish made from the flesh and blood of a legendary rank creature. So tonight, he is in for something. 09 takes it in stride, but Will and Seongha do not. Will especially looks shaken, because until this moment he thought draining 01's blood to push his bloodthirsty battle axe up to legendary rank was the most incredible thing anyone at this table had managed lately. He never expected me to have killed a legendary rank creature outright and then served it for dinner. Seongha looks at me with real feeling, since she missed the battle in the purple dungeon entirely and never learned how that fight actually went. She had assumed I would pay a considerable price to put down the chief who fought with biological toxins. Clearly she overthought it, because against a man who can kill a legendary rank creature, no amount of strange technique matters against absolute power. I shake my head at their expressions and tell them it was nowhere near as easy as they are imagining. That legendary rank creature only went down because 09 and Baekhyun were both in the fight with me. Alone, I might still have finished it, though whether I would be out of bed today is another question entirely. I tell them to eat before the food cools, and Baekhyun announces that in that case he will not bother being polite, since he intends to find out what legendary rank meat tastes like. The table empties fast after that. Every one of us carries legendary rank strength and the physical qualities that come with it, and maintaining a body like that burns a frankly absurd amount of energy every single day. Put low-rank food in front of us and 10 tables would vanish without difficulty. This table is different, because every ingredient sits at an extremely high rank, and the main dish is legendary. Even 09, who normally eats like a bird, keeps going until she physically cannot continue, and we still do not clear the table. Baekhyun slumps back in his chair, patting his stomach, complaining that he has never in his life been this full. Seongha, who genuinely loves to eat, sets down her chopsticks and surrenders. Even Will looks at what remains and decides he is finished. The problem is not only volume. After a meal at that rank, every one of us can feel a warm current settled in the stomach, steadily feeding the body. The next time any of us trains, we will see real progress out of it. That is the hidden effect of legendary rank meat, and if we could eat at this level every meal, our growth rates would be terrifying. Unfortunately, the flesh and blood of legendary rank creatures remains a rare commodity, and even we cannot manage it more than once in a long while. I am stuffed too. Seeing that everyone has had enough, I tell them it is good that they are full, because now we get to the serious part of the evening. Then I stand and lead them away from the table toward the office. Behind us, the attendants sweep in and start clearing the leftovers. A few of them swallow hard while they work, and I do not blame them, because even the scraps on those plates are high-end goods they would never otherwise touch. It is not just about flavor, since a few bites of that would meaningfully raise their strength. The attendant supervisor sees exactly where their eyes have gone. He raises his voice and reminds them that leftovers are still not theirs to touch, that this is their duty, and that someone was fired not long ago for stealing ingredients. He adds that banquet hall attendants receive extremely high welfare benefits, and that they had better cherish the posting. They answer him in unison and thank him for the reminder, though I notice he is looking at those plates just as hungrily as they are, and he restrains himself anyway. The leftovers get carted off, processed into feed, and dumped into the ants. By the time we are seated in the office, Seongha and 09 are still holding themselves like guests at a formal reception, and Will is upright enough. Baekhyun has poured himself across the sofa with no decorum whatsoever. Nobody comments, because we have all known him too long to expect anything else. I open because someone has to. I tell them that everyone here has been through a great deal recently, and that almost all of us have stood in genuinely lethal situations. The outcome has been good, though. Every one of us has now defeated all the Black Island chiefs in our respective regions and become the sole chief there. 7 days remain until the Great Vortex event closes, and there will be no fighting during those 7 days. But peacetime is exactly when you prepare for what comes next. Cheonga nods and picks up the thread, agreeing with me and then asking whether the rest of us have a certain feeling about this great vortex event. Baekhyun tries to lift his head off the sofa cushion, fails, and flops back down. From flat on his back, he tells her to stop building suspense and simply say what she is thinking. She gives him an annoyed look and asks whether it does not strike everyone that this great vortex event has been rushed. Rushed. The word lands strangely, and she reads the confusion on our faces and explains it. The theme of the Great Vortex event was the same sealed jar method the Dark World always uses. A crowd of venomous creatures shut in together until only one crawls out. Everyone inside a region tears at each other until the strongest is determined, which is not meaningfully different from the events that came before, only broader in scope and heavier in headcount. She says the difference is the vortex itself, because hanging a life and death crisis over the whole thing accelerated the entire fighting process. It was far more hurried than anything before it. That resonates with the whole room. I nod and tell her I feel the same, that at no point in the event was there time to breathe, and that we were either fighting or preparing to fight for its entire duration. With the vortex swinging over us like a sword on a thread, the pressure was on a different order than usual. Chung-ha says she has a guess about that. If the Dark World is this eager to sort out its strongest individuals, then there must be a major operation coming. A major operation. I feel the shape of something behind that and ask her outright whether she has specific intelligence. She smiles, looks at me, and shakes her head gently, saying she does have a little, though it is not specific, only a slight possibility. That is enough to straighten every spine in the room, and we all sit watching her. She reminds us that she has Little Green, and that Little Green's race is the world tree. Each time it advances, it recovers some secret information out of its racial inheritance. When it stepped up to diamond rank last time, all it gained was the ability to cultivate tree spirits, and it told her nothing useful beyond that. But over the last 2 days, the world tree finally shook off the effects of the biological toxins, and the threat to its life seems to have done something. It not only improved by a minor level, it also had part of its inherited memories come unlocked. Baekhyun actually forces himself upright on the sofa for that, demanding to know what exactly the memories said and whether it has anything to do with our current situation. Chung-ha tells him it does. Little Green said that the Dark World once held many races. Every one of them went through the same sealed jar screening we humans are living through now, each round faster and more urgent than the last. Eventually, a group of racial leaders is selected, and the screening stops. After that, the Dark World finally starts using them for what it actually wanted. I frown hard at that and nod, because it fits everything I have seen. The Dark World has a powerful self-awareness. It can abduct an entire planet's worth of humans off Blue Star, and it can lay out rewards and events over and over to sort us. Nothing capable of that does it without a purpose. So I ask her the 2 questions that matter. What is its true purpose? And where are the other biological groups that once came here? Cheong-ha shakes her head gently and tells me she can only answer one of them right now. The information Little Green recovered is incomplete, and perhaps when it truly reaches legendary rank, we will finally understand the truth of the Dark World. Then she goes on. Of all the biological groups that once came to the Dark World, only a few scattered individuals are known to remain, spread thin across the entire Dark Continent. Little Green is one. The brainworm I turned up a while back is another. There are almost certainly more we have never found. As for the purpose, Little Green did give her a piece of that. After the selection reaches a certain level, the Dark World intends to use us, the ones it selected, to conquer other worlds on its behalf. She says what a world wants is whatever makes it grow. Other worlds hold existences that would let the Dark World grow and evolve, attacking other worlds. The expressions around the office change all at once. Baekhyun curses and complains that the Dark World kidnapped us to be its hired muscle, and that it grabbed billions of us in one haul to do it. I nod and answer in a low voice that the explanation is plausible, that at minimum it holds together logically. A world with self-awareness has no reason to carry anything resembling human morality or compassion. At least 3 billion humans have already died in the Dark World, and that figure only covers the losses from its own internal screening. Cheong-ha agrees and takes it further. The Dark World's goal is to have humans conquer other worlds for it, and the screening exists to pick out suitable warriors. If merely selecting qualified warriors has cost this many lives, the cost of the actual conquest hardly bears thinking about. Anything the Dark World has to prepare this meticulously for is not a simple existence. What we face then could be 10 or 100 times more dangerous than what we just survived. Will's face goes solemn, and I can watch the thoughts move behind it. His goal has always been to tear his former organization out by the roots, and he never once considered dangers on a larger scale than that. Listening to Chung-ha, the thing coming for us dwarfs everything he had been aiming at, and the organization that has loomed over his whole life suddenly looks like nothing at all. He is not alone anymore either. He has his sister, and he has comrades like me standing in the same fight, so he can no longer just follow his own impulses. Something in his resolve cracks, and he says, half to himself, that perhaps he should be frank with all of us about his situation. The mood in the room has dropped, so I pull it back up. I tell them there is no need for that much pessimism. The Dark World went to enormous lengths to haul humanity off Blue Star, and then ran screening after screening on us, which means it intends to squeeze the maximum value out of what it has. It will not spend us pointlessly. As long as we stay at the front of the pack in raw strength, survival at least should not be the problem. And as our strength keeps climbing, there may come a day when we break free of the Dark World's control entirely and stand on our own. Everyone settles a little after that. Baekhyun laughs and says I am right, that staying ahead at least keeps us breathing, though being molded and steered by the Dark World however it pleases is not a pleasant way to live. He says we need to find an opening to work out how to get out from under it. Cheongha agrees, but warns against haste. She heard Little Tree say there have genuinely been those who escaped the Dark World and lived, and he told her every one of them was a top-tier powerhouse. Even legendary rank might not be enough to break the leash. At minimum, it would take mythical rank. Mythical rank. I let out a breath. I tell them that forget mythical. Even legendary rank is no small goal from where we stand. So breaking free of the Dark World is clearly not something anyone accomplishes overnight. We take it one step at a time. Baekhyun smiles and says that in the meantime we should settle our internal problems first, starting with the God King, because the sooner that one is handled, the better. With his abilities, his growth rate is going to be frightening, even if we had no history with him at all. An ability that matures into something feeding on every intelligent being is a monster in the making. I agree with him. Overthinking the far horizon is useless when the near one has teeth. Cheongha, though, looks a little lost and asks whether the God King is the leader of the organization that the chief who attacked her territory belonged to. She and Will have had almost no contact with him, while Baekhyun and I have had rather too much, and hearing fragments of our conversation has left them curious and wary in equal measure. I nod and tell her it is him, then walk them both through what Baekhyun and I know about the God King's situation. By the time I finish, the two of them understand the seriousness. Cheongha frowns and says that the God King feeds on other people's spiritual power, and that he does it by draining the pond to catch every last fish. A man like that only grows more dangerous the longer he is left alone. She says he has to be dealt with first if it is possible at all. So I set the direction. Everyone gathers what information they can on the God King and tries to pin down the location of his Black Island. For the next week, everyone uses the time to develop and push their combat power as far as it goes. So we are ready to move the moment the event ends. Nods all around. Then I remember I have something worth showing off, and I tell Will and Cheongha to come look at something good, since Baekhyun and 09 have already had the experience. I take the two of them, faces full of curiosity, into the virtual training force field. They are astonished immediately, which is exactly what I expected, because neither of them has ever set foot in one, and the first session is where the effect is most obvious. It compares favorably with swallowing a rare, high-grade consumable, and the jump in comprehension of power that comes out of that first entry is not something you can put a price on. The experience ends, everyone agrees to dedicate a block of time each day to training, and then they scatter back to their own Black Islands to stockpile strength for whatever comes next. I do the same. For 7 days straight, I temper body and mind in the virtual training force field. All my main ants breed at full speed the whole time, swelling the colony's population against an essentially infinite supply of resources. On the 7th day, 1 minute before midnight, I am not in bed. My biological clock says otherwise, but I sit in my office and wait quietly for something I am fairly sure is coming. Midnight passes. That familiar voice arrives on cue, announcing that the Great Vortex event has run for 30 days, that the Great Vortex event has ended, and that settlement will now proceed. I stayed up precisely because I expected a system announcement the instant the event closed, and I was right. Settlement. The Dark World has never once concluded an event without paying out afterward, so I settle in and wait for the rewards to land. The voice continues. Every surviving chief receives an event reward package, and where multiple chiefs share the same area, a portion of the package resources is divided according to the size of each Black Island. Dividing by island size, with no extra package for anyone. I mutter to myself that the Dark World is genuinely stingy, and if an area really did end with 2 chiefs, then between them, their Black Islands probably never even reached 100 units. During the final 3 days, both of them would have been sitting under a level 5 suction force the entire time. I honestly wonder whether any such situation exists. Then again, the Dark World is vast, with tens of thousands of areas in it, so somewhere out there a few people almost certainly found a rule loophole and squeezed through alive. I am ready to call the announcement finished when the voice keeps going. The newcomer event has ended. Dark Island is now unlocked, and all chiefs may enter through their manual for free exploration. Dark Island. I sit up and open my manual at once, and I have barely turned 2 pages before the world channel detonates. The tone runs the whole range in about 10 seconds. Half of it is outrage that surviving those life and death crises only means we have finally cleared the newbie village, and someone points out that this so-called newbie village killed at least a third of us. Plenty of people say the name Dark Island alone sounds like nothing good and that anyone who wants it can have it. Someone else counters that the Dark World would hardly open a place purely to kill everyone who walks in. He argues that since every chief can go there, people can finally meet face to face. Then a gamer takes the floor and argues that when a new map opens, the first wave in always eats the opportunities and resources. He says pioneering beats caution, and whoever waits gets the scraps. He gets accused of trying to bait other people into scouting the traps for him, which he cheerfully does not deny. He tells everyone to believe him or not while he goes and takes the good things himself. Message after message goes scrolling past. It is worth remembering who is talking. Everyone still able to speak on the world channel is a king of competition who came out on top of more than 100 black islands across an entire region. Every one of them fought through millions of people to get there. That crowd being this loud tells me exactly how hard the announcement landed. I stop reading and keep turning pages. On the 10th page, I finally find something new. The page calls Dark Island the central island of the Dark World. Below that, a single line asking whether I wish to enter. That is the entire entry. 2 short lines, and the useful half is a handful of words. A handful of words is plenty to send my mind running. The center of the entire Dark World. If it is an island, there is an island lord. And if a man could make himself lord of Dark Island, would that not make him master of the whole world? I entertained that for about 3 seconds before I let it go with a smile, because the Dark World is a conscious entity, not a dead object lying around waiting for an owner. Simply slipping its leash may be beyond us. Fantasizing about sitting on its throne can wait. My manual chimes then, and I do not need to guess who it is. It turns out to be Cheongha. She tells me the Dark World has just announced the opening of Dark Island, and that the name itself triggered Little Green's memory inheritance, and shook loose some information. The information is incomplete, but it says that entering Dark Island itself carries no danger, while what you encounter once you are there may be extremely dangerous. That fits what I had already guessed about the place, though an unknown area still deserves every ounce of caution I can spare. With her intelligence confirming it, I relax almost completely and reply that I understand and thank her, and that I will go explore it shortly. She says she will head over later as well, and that she will see me there. I am in no hurry. That word pioneering from the World Channel tugged at me a little, I will admit. But I do not put faith in vague promises like that. The Dark World has run event after event from the beginning until now, and when has it ever handed out rewards anywhere except exactly where it wanted them spent? Nobody simply strolls into a great treasure, so I decide to look over the Great Vortex settlement rewards first and explore Dark Island afterward. My expectations are modest, because every chief still standing received the same package, and things everyone owns are rarely worth much. I tell myself it beats nothing, and that the Dark World's rewards at this stage should at least not be embarrassing. The package is a completely black box, palm-sized, and it looks a great deal like an instance box. The difference is that instances come color-coded across the 7 shades of the rainbow, and none of them is black. I open it without hesitating. A thin black light shoots out through the gap, flashes once, and dies. Inside sit 3 jade fragments in 3 different colors, edges broken like pieces off a puzzle. One is the second fragment of a red world beacon. One is the first fragment of a blue world beacon. One is the 5th fragment of a purple world beacon. One is the 5th fragment of a purple world beacon. A world beacon, and in 3 different colors at that. I frown at the jade in my palm and turn the name over. I had expected the settlement package to be unimpressive, but 3 fragments is a thinner payout than even I was braced for. Still, the item information alone tells me a fair amount if I sit with it. A world beacon almost certainly does not refer to the Dark World itself. It refers to the location of other worlds, which makes it an item for traveling to them, and that lines up precisely with what Sheng-Ha told us about the Dark World's purpose. She said the Dark World keeps running selection events to screen for warriors strong enough to go fetch it the things it needs to evolve. I simply did not expect the next step to arrive this quickly. But everything here is a fragment. To get anything usable, a person clearly has to gather a certain number and synthesize them into one complete beacon. Red, blue, purple, and the colors look far too much like the instance islands we spent months conquering to be a coincidence. Almost certainly they mark the tier of the world the beacon points to, running low to high across the 7 rainbow shades. Red, then orange, then yellow, then green, then cyan, then blue, then purple. I pick the 3 fragments up again and study their shapes carefully. The red one is roughly the size of a scallop shell. The blue one runs noticeably smaller. The purple one is 2 full sizes smaller than the blue. That difference tells me something, and a guess takes shape. A complete world beacon should be the same size regardless of color, and judging by the curve of the broken edges, The finished object should be round. If that holds, then the smaller each colored fragment is, the more of them a complete beacon takes. Red, by shape and size, might come together out of only a few pieces. Blue would need considerably more, possibly over a dozen. Purple could easily demand 30 to 50. I rub my temples because the actually difficult part is not the count. Every world beacon fragment carries a number stamped on it, 1 and 2 and 5, among my 3, which means synthesis requires every fragment of a matching color and a distinct number. Simply piling up quantity accomplishes nothing. That raises the difficulty by an order of magnitude, and right now the only known source of fragments is the settlement package, which means every chief alive is walking around with exactly 3. So I run the arithmetic. Over 8 billion humans came to the Dark World, and at the start each Black Island held 10,000 people and produced 1 chief. The Vortex event that just ended put roughly 150 Black Islands into a single area and left exactly 1 regional winner standing in each. That works out to somewhere near 6,000 regional winners, 3 fragments apiece, 18,000 fragments in total. On paper, that is at least 1,000 complete world beacons. On paper. In practice, those 6,000 winners are not short of resources and will not part with a fragment for anything reasonable, which makes assembling a full beacon brutally hard. If someone came to me for mine, I would not hand them over either. And even with my 5 teammates pooling everything we have, we would still struggle to complete a single set. If free trade is the only channel, then nobody is gathering a world beacon anytime soon. Unless, of course, you happen to lead a powerful organization and control a large stable of regional winners the way the God King does, in which case you could assemble them in-house. But men like that are a minority, and the Dark World does not introduce an item and then let it sit gathering dust. There has to be a mechanism somewhere that keeps these fragments moving. My eyes go back to the manual. Dark Island. That is where the answer is. I pick the manual up carefully and spend a while longer watching the World Channel first. A full 10 minutes pass and nobody mentions a single danger on Dark Island. That is enough for me. I turn to page 10, answer the prompt asking whether I want to enter, and confirm it. The manual vibrates in my hand, and a black teleportation array unfolds out of thin air in front of me. I touch the spirit nurturing jar at my waist, packed with my main battle ants, take a breath, and step onto the array. The intricate patterns flare with black light. The world spins like I have been thrown into a tumble dryer, and my consciousness goes out. It comes back slowly, and the moment I have it, I snap my eyes open, push myself upright, and sweep the area with every sense I have. What I find takes me slightly aback. I am standing in an enormous plaza floored in some unknown black stone polished smooth as a mirror. At its center rise 6 towering pitch-black high towers that run straight up into the sky. Every one of them wears the marks of time, ancient and unreadable, as though they have stood in silence for tens of thousands of years. In front of the 6 towers stands a pitch-black stone tablet, carved over with strange runes. There are at least 1,000 people in the plaza, some cluster at the base of the towers, examining them. More crowd the tablet, studying the runes. The rest are scattered loose across the stone, in no hurry to approach either. Once I have the layout, I check myself over and find not so much as a speck of dust on my clothes, which pulls a small breath of relief out of me. It also leaves a doubt sitting in the back of my mind. I know exactly what kind of people these chiefs are. Every one of them selected out of millions, and almost none of them benevolent. A defenseless man of equal strength lying unconscious in front of that crowd should not have come through untouched. The doubt answers itself quickly enough. Beams of light flash across the plaza in several places, and a moment later a handful of new people are lying teleported onto the stone. They are unconscious and flat on the ground, but each of them is wrapped in a black halo. One chief who arrived a little before them drifts over toward a newcomer with unmistakable intent, and the instant his hand comes halfway out, the black halo snaps up and strikes his palm. He goes rigid like a man hit by lightning, jerks back several steps with his face twisted, and then retreats fast, cradling his injured right hand and giving up any further ideas. So that is how it works. Chiefs teleported onto Dark Island are protected, and I do not need to worry about being carved up while I am out. It makes sense when I think about who we are to this place. Every chief standing here is an elite enforcer the Dark World handpicked to go conquer other worlds and drag resources home for it. It would hardly let its own investment get gutted on the doorstep in the stupidest possible way. I pat my clothes down twice and take a proper look at the people around me. Every one of them was chosen out of millions, and any one of them could end up my enemy or my ally. What I notice immediately is that most of them are wearing a mask or a veil, faces concealed, features impossible to read. The reasoning is obvious. Everyone here is powerful and nobody knows what bizarre abilities the next man carries, so caution costs nothing. I take the hint. I lower my head to cover most of my face, pull a silver rank mask type protective item out of my storage ring, and put it on. It carries a vortex-like pattern across the front, and it was a trophy I took off another Black Island chief a while back. Beyond the basic facial protection, that pattern interferes with an enemy's attention. I only kept it because I assumed mask-type equipment was rare and it might be useful someday. Today is someday. I run a probe of spiritual power across my own face, and find it meets resistance and stops, which is exactly what I wanted. Even the ability users who specialize in spiritual power will have to work for anything they want off me. Satisfied, I look toward the crowd ahead. Only a scattering of people are studying the 6 black towers, while the overwhelming majority are packed around the pitch-black tablet, which tells me where the actual secret of Dark Island is written. I head straight for it, and I am picking up conversation well before I arrive. People are indignant that we have to hand over resources just to draw a world beacon fragment when resources are already scarce. The draw is fully random too, with no guarantee of getting the fragment you actually need. Someone answers that a useless fragment can simply be traded to somebody who needs it. He says resources are the smallest problem of all, because a world beacon points at an entire world. A whole world's worth of resources earns back a few draws several times over. Someone else adds that conquering enough worlds is what unlocks the mysterious Black Tower. That is a great deal of information for the price of walking slowly. I do not join the discussion, and I read the tablet myself. It calls itself the Guiding Tablet, which is exactly what it does, pointing visitors toward whatever the Dark World wants them doing next. It currently offers 2 functions. The first is a lottery, where investing 100 units of resources buys a single draw for a world beacon fragment. The second is a mission, where a mandatory task refreshes at random once a month, and failure results in being banned from Dark Island. Below those 2 sits a third line, grayed out and marked as not yet unlocked, with no conditions displayed at all. The lottery strikes me as strange the moment I read it. The Dark World clearly needs us to go conquer worlds on its behalf, and it still expects us to spend our own resources to draw the key. That is a boss making the staff buy their own coffee before a shift. I also have no idea yet how those 100 units are actually calculated. The mission entry is even shorter, and far more important. A mandatory task once a month, failure meaning expulsion from Dark Island. Once a month is not a punishing frequency, but the penalty is enormous. Dark Island is not merely the gateway to other worlds. It also holds those black towers whose functions nobody understands yet. Whatever else happens, this place is going to be the center of development for every Black Island chief from here forward, and anyone expelled from it will watch his growth stall out on the spot. With the Great Vortex event finished, the entire Dark World loses its boundaries, and every chief can sail wherever he likes. A chief whose development stalls gets eaten, so I look at that second function with the seriousness it deserves. Whatever mission comes, it gets completed. Failing is not on the menu. The Guiding Tablet clearly has more to it, but the rest is locked and I have no idea what unlocks it. With the tablet read, I walk over to the Black Towers. All 6 are enormous, but a closer look shows their heights differ, each one about a single story shorter than the last, tallest down to shortest. I read them in that order. Every tower carries an unlock condition. The shortest one requires conquering any world 7 times before entry is permitted. The other 5 do not even display their conditions, and when I put my Eye of Delusion breaking on them, it returns absolutely nothing. That says everything. The tier of these towers sits so far above my current strength that even my pupil technique cannot read them. I would love to know what waits inside, but the shortest of the 6 already demands 7 conquered worlds for the privilege of walking in the door. I frown, turn away, and let my body rise slowly into the air, because if this place is called an island, then it can hardly consist of 1 plaza and 6 towers. Whatever else lives out there in the other areas, I want to see it. Plenty of others are thinking the same thing, and the crowd around the towers and the tablet already begins to thin as people spread out to explore. I go straight up first. The sky over Dark Island is cloudless and holds no stars, no sun, no moon, and yet there is a surprisingly strong light coming from somewhere. The whole space is not bright, dominated as it is by the blackness of the plaza and the towers, but it is nowhere near dark enough to hide anything. As I climb, an inexplicable pressure settles over me. It wraps my entire body, and nothing I try does anything to relieve it, and the higher I go, the heavier it gets, until it stops being merely uncomfortable. There is a ceiling in this space. At roughly 3,000 meters, I cannot force another meter out of myself, so I stop pushing and drop straight back down. On the way, I notice how many others are testing the same thing. Some manage a few hundred meters, others reach 1 or 2,000. Nobody I can see gets anywhere near where I just was. That makes me wonder whether the ceiling is tied to strength, and whether a man strong enough could break the limit outright and move through this whole space freely. It is only a guess, but it feels right. I leave the sky and start working my way outward from the plaza, and I do not realize until later that my climb was watched. Behind me, people are talking about the man in the vortex mask who just took himself up to 3,000 meters, when most of them stalled out past 1,000. They argue over whether that means raw strength or simply some pressure resistance ability. Either way, they agree he is worth watching. Let them watch. The mask is doing exactly what I put it on to do. I walk to the plaza's edge, and it takes a full 3 kilometers from the center to get there. Just as I am approaching the boundary, someone up ahead shouts in unmistakable delight that he has picked up a fragment, an actual world beacon fragment. He holds a green shard high in his right hand. The joy on his face is not an act. In front of him lies a dim wilderness. I look into it and find it possesses some kind of magic that cuts my line of sight off at 10 meters flat. Past that, nothing resolves. With my current physical fitness unobstructed, I can comfortably see several kilometers. If I layer my pupil techniques and spiritual power on top of that, 10,000 meters at a glance is not out of reach. 10 meters, and that single fact puts me thoroughly on guard. Free fragments lying on the ground. No lottery required. If that were genuinely how it worked, who on this island would ever spend resources on a draw? I keep my distance and watch. His shouting carries far and it pulls a crowd fast, though most of them do exactly what I am doing and hang back. The finder gets a grip on himself, scans the onlookers warily, and then flashes back into the dim wilderness. Not long after, his voice comes out of it again, deliberately lowered, blurting that there is another one. Then he seems to realize what he is doing and cuts himself off mid-word. Nothing more comes out of the wilderness after that. Unfortunately for him, every chief standing at that boundary has physical qualities far past any ordinary human, and we all heard him perfectly. That sets the crowd off. People want to know whether there really are fragments lying around in there. Someone says he just tried the guiding tablet. That one draw costs 100 units of resources, and that 100 units is his territory's entire output for 10 full days. 10 days for a single random shard strikes most of them as robbery, and a good number decide on the spot that whatever waits in the wilderness is worth the risk. They start going in, and one of them makes a point of shouting a few loud remarks before he disappears into the murk, clearly aimed at the people still standing outside. I see through it immediately and shake my head with a smile, because the man is nervous about going in alone and wants company to spread the risk across. It is obvious, and it also works. Everyone standing there survived to this point by being clever, and they all understand exactly what he is doing. They go anyway, agreeing out loud that exploring together means someone watching your back and far better odds. One by one, the watchers follow him in until only a handful of us are left outside. I have not drawn a fragment yet, but that 10-day figure sticks with me. My territory's daily resource output is certainly higher than an average chief's, so a draw would cost me several days rather than 10, which sounds better until you look at where my resources actually go. My territory is full of enormous resource-devouring appetites. Every day's production is spoken for before it finishes being produced, already assigned to whichever ant queen's stomach it belongs in. There is no surplus anywhere in the system. If drawing world beacon fragments really eats resources at that rate, the lottery is effectively closed to me, which makes hunting fragments in the wilderness look extremely cost-effective, on paper. I frown at the murk and still do not take a single step into it. I stand at the edge instead and talk myself down. The situation inside that wilderness is completely unknown, and there is no rush over a handful of shards. Impatience is how people die. If I go in at all, I go in with Baekhyun and the others. Decision made. I turn to go find out what mission the guiding tablet hands out, after which I can decide whether to call the others in for a proper expedition into the Dark Island wilderness. Then the screaming starts behind me. Someone yells that there are monsters. Someone else just yells for help. 2 steps into leaving, I stop, and I turn back toward the wilderness, with the humor gone out of my face. Chiefs start bursting out of the murk, filthy and disheveled, dust in every seam of their clothes, expressions grim. After a longer wait, the man who went in first and found 2 fragments staggers out as well, and his condition is 10 times worse than anyone else's. His right leg is fractured through, dragging behind him at an angle legs do not make. His back is a bloody ruin, and the smell coming off it is scorched meat, as though someone laid a branding iron across his spine. Nothing is left of the delight he was wearing 20 minutes ago. He is simply relieved to be breathing. If that crowd had not followed him in, and split the monster's attention across a dozen targets, he would still be in there. I study the group of them with a considerably heavier expression. These are chiefs of entire regions. Put a peak diamond rank monster in front of a pack of them, and the monster is the one with the problem. And a single creature just chased all of them out looking like that, which means the thing in there is very likely legendary rank. The comparison arrives on its own. The dragon-head giant wolf I fought in the purple dungeon, and the weight of the pressure it put out, still sits in my memory clearly enough to raise the hair on my arms. Only a monster in that class beats a group of diamond-ranked chiefs into a blind, helpless retreat. They have barely caught their breath when a rustling comes out of the wilderness, something large moving fast toward the plaza. Every chief sprawled on the stone, recovering, goes up like a startled deer and runs, and in a few seconds the boundary is deserted. Except for one. The worst injured of them drags his ruined right leg, trying to get distance, and leaves nothing behind but streaks of blood. on black stone. He cannot run fast, and he cannot run far. I frown and start to pull back myself. Whatever my gains since clearing the purple dungeon, meeting a suspected legendary rank enemy alone still carries real risk, and I take risks only when they buy me something. Then the man calls out to me, begging for a hand, and I look over to find the broken-legged chief staring at me with open pleading on his face. I hesitate for less than 1/10 of a second. Then I throw a rope, loop it around him completely, lift off the ground and haul him away from the boundary at speed. He coughs through his thanks the whole way, calling me his benefactor, stammering his gratitude. Then he holds his hand out with 2 world beacon fragments sitting on the palm, one red and one green. I frown and ask whether those are the fragments he found in the wilderness. He coughs again and says they are, and then he says, with more bitterness than self-pity, that it is laughable how far greed carried him before it dropped him here. He's wearing brown battle armor and looks very young under the dirt, and his face is nothing but regret. He tells me 2 fragments could never repay saving his life, and that his other 3 are back in his territory and he will bring them to me when he returns. He does not get to finish because something hits the boundary hard enough to interrupt him. A goat-headed man, 3 meters tall and wrapped in flame, has slammed into the edge of the plaza and cannot come 1 step further. It stands there with a savage expression, sweeps a greedy look across every chief in the plaza, then turns and walks back into the wilderness. The relief goes through the crowd like a released breath, and the conclusions follow immediately. Monsters cannot enter the plaza, so the plaza is a safe zone, which means the risk of exploring the wilderness is far smaller than it looked. Several people work out loud that surviving 1 or 2 hits is enough, since you can always sprint back onto the stone. Someone drier points out that they just watched the strength of that goat-headed monster, and that it is legendary rank. He adds that more than one thing certainly lives out there, so they should picture being surrounded by a group of them before they get confident. That deflates the mood. A few announce they will simply hoard resources and buy fragments honestly instead. One of them notes that a handful of people with complementary fragments could pool into a small team. That way they get a shot at conquering a world without any of them spending much at all. Nobody goes back into the wilderness. They all drift toward the guiding tablet instead. That leaves the brown-armored chief and me looking at each other. He is still holding the 2 fragments he promised me. He is also, I can see, doing the same arithmetic everyone else just did. The goat-headed man could never have crossed onto the plaza, so even without my rope he would have survived. He might have been frightened. He would not have died. His open hand slowly closes, and the red fragment and the green fragment disappear back into his fist. I watch it happen and it makes me smile. I ask him whether he has changed his mind about the reward. I want to be clear with myself about this, because it matters less than he thinks. I threw the rope before he offered me anything, partly because it cost me almost nothing and was simply convenient. The other part is that this man is the chief of an entire region, hundreds of units of Black Island, with subjects numbering at least in the tens of thousands. If he had died out there, a great many people who never left home would have died with him eventually. It was a small kindness and nothing more. He bled for those 2 fragments, and if he keeps them, I understand completely. It is not a matter I intend to spend feeling on. He is not nearly as relaxed about it as I am. The struggle plays out across his whole face, color coming and going, his right hand clenching and opening and clenching again. It goes on for nearly a full minute, and I am already turning to leave when he finally settles himself. He extends his right hand toward me and says in a low, steady voice that this is the reward he promised. He tells me his name is Im Cho, and that he will bring me the other 3 fragments once he is back in his territory. I will admit that surprised me a little, not enough to dwell on it. I take the 2 world beacon fragments off his palm with a smile and tell him these 2 are enough, and that I will see him again sometime. Then I turn and go without any further discussion, leaving him standing where he is. He calls after me, asking my name. I do not stop walking, and I answer over my shoulder that I am a nobody. Behind me he stays put, watching my back until I am completely out of sight. Only then does he haul himself up and limp away, repeating the word nobody to himself alongside the words vortex mask. The 2 fragments turn out to be the 3rd fragment of a red world beacon and the 1st fragment of a green one, and I owned neither before. It is a genuine gain, and it also does nothing at all to close the gap between what I have and a complete beacon. I toss them into my storage ring and head back toward the guiding tablet, turning something over on the way. These chiefs are not benevolent people. Im Cho was mangled and half crippled, holding 2 fragments in an open palm in front of a crowd of the most predatory survivors this world has produced. Not one of them made a move, which suggests that inside this area people simply cannot harm each other. I have not tested it, and I am not about to, but the behavior alone tells me a good deal about Dark Island's rules. The guiding tablet has thinned out considerably by the time I reach it. It also turns out there is no need to fight for a turn, since anyone standing within 10 meters can attach spiritual power to it and interact with it directly, which is convenient. It prompts me for 100 units of resources in exchange for a single lottery draw. I already heard the other chiefs discussing the cost, but hearing a thing and testing a thing are different animals. What I actually want to know is whether the resources are restricted. Does it demand basic materials like wood and ore and food, or will it accept anything at all? So I pull a silver rank longsword out of my storage ring. My storage ring holds a genuinely large space, and I carry 10 of them at once, which looks flamboyant but means I have never once had to think about capacity. Most chiefs at this stage are the same, both hands stacked with rings all the way up, and nobody finds it strange anymore. All that space means I keep a great deal of miscellaneous junk on hand against unforeseen needs. A silver rank weapon is completely useless to me now, since I am more dangerous with empty hands than with that sword. It still carries nominal value though, which makes it a perfect test subject. The tablet answers before I have decided anything. It reports 1 silver rank weapon detected, equivalent to 2 units of resources. It reports my accumulated resource points at 2 and asks me to continue investing the remaining 98 units to qualify. The longsword vanishes out of my hand into thin air. I stare at the empty space where it was for a second, then shake my head with a very thin smile. I was testing the thing, and it simply ate my weapon. Overbearing does not begin to cover it, and a silver rank weapon converts to 2 units. 2 units out of 100. The good news is real enough, since weapons converting at all means the tablet is not limited to basic materials. The conversion ratio is where the headache starts. That chief outside was not exaggerating. A single draw costs several days of a strong territory's entire production, and for most people it is closer to 10. That is no small sum by anyone's accounting, and I make a note to pass all of it to Baekhyun and the others later. I stop thinking about the lottery and open the mission interface instead. It asks whether I want to accept a random mandatory mission, since missions have to be completed once a month regardless. Accepting early costs me nothing and buys me time to prepare around whatever it says. I take it without hesitating. The draw succeeds. The tablet informs me that I am to conquer a world of orange rank or above within 30 days, and notes, almost politely, that entering an orange world requires a complete orange world beacon. An orange world. My luck is genuinely remarkable. Right now, the routes to collecting world beacon fragments are so scarce that assembling one complete beacon is a project in itself, and that is before anyone talks about conquering the world it opens onto. Nobody here has the faintest idea how long conquering a world actually takes. I rub my forehead, feel the headache building behind it, and decide to set the whole problem down for now. I will cross that bridge when I reach it. First, I go home and prepare. With Dark Island's available information more or less mapped, I want to work out the next moves with Baekhyun and the others, so I take out my manual to send a message, and the manual does not work. Not one function on it responds. That startles me badly for a moment. I flip through it fast, checking page after page, because this manual is my entire foundation in the Dark World, and I had used it every single day since I arrived. If the manual were damaged, my shelter would detonate outright. A problem with it is not a small problem. On the second pass, I find that every page still displays its information perfectly, and none of it can be interacted with at all. It has become an ordinary notebook with ordinary paper in it. Before that can turn into real alarm, I notice several other people scattered across the plaza flipping through their own manuals, with exactly the same frantic energy. My shoulders come down at once. So it is not an isolated case, which makes it a property of Dark Island rather than a fault in mine. The manual's functions are simply disabled here, and I will confirm that the moment I step out. I have seen what there is to see, so I stop hesitating. I turn to the 10th page, the entry page for Dark Island, and find that a leave option has appeared beside the entry. That one still works, which is a relief in itself. I confirm it, and the next second I am gone from the plaza entirely. Consciousness comes back with familiar walls around it. I am in my shelter, inside the wizard tower, and the sight of my own rooms pulls a long breath out of me. Dark Island is nothing but mystery, unknowns, and rules I did not write. I was not there long and I never came close to danger, and the entire time something in my chest stayed tight. It was never fear. It was the specific discomfort of standing somewhere I do not control, back inside a place I control completely. That tightness finally lets go. The first thing I do is pick up my manual and work through every function on it, and everything responds. The manual has been restored, which confirms that the restriction lives on Dark Island and travels no further. That leaves me with a question I cannot answer, because I genuinely do not understand what the Dark World gains by disabling our manuals in the one place it wants us all gathering. The manual chimes before I can chew on it any longer, and I smile, because the timing tells me who it is. Baekhyun and the rest are coming back off Dark Island with the same idea I have, which is that everyone pools what they saw. It turns out to be Cheongha. She writes that she has just returned from Dark Island, that she found some information, and that she collected a great many more questions. The manual was clearly disabled there, so she could only reach me after leaving, and she asks when we can meet. The chime comes again before I can reply, and this time it is Will, saying essentially the same thing. So I simply message all 4 of them at once, telling them everyone should be surfacing around now, and to come straight to my place in half an hour for a plain information exchange. Baekhyun and 09 have not answered yet, but half an hour is more than enough margin for either of them. So that is when I said it. Cheongha and Will both confirm and go to get ready. 09's reply lands 5 minutes after Will's. Then the full half hour runs out, and Baekhyun still has not sent a word. That is the part that starts to bother me. He is not the type to go quiet, and Dark Island is not supposed to have anything on it capable of shutting him up. The agreed hour arrives, and Cheongha, Will, and 09 teleport into my territory almost simultaneously, right on time. Cheongha apologizes for keeping me waiting, then immediately notices the gap and asks where Baekhyun is. He is the last man alive who would miss a chance to be in the middle of something, and she wants to know how he of all people ended up late. I frown and shake my head, telling her I sent him a message and got nothing back, which almost certainly means he is still on Dark Island and cannot receive it. Baekhyun would never simply fail to answer. Cheongha is his relative, and the news puts an edge on her face immediately, her expression going tight. So I settle her down. I tell her not to worry, since they've all seen the state of Dark Island for themselves. As long as a man is not actively courting death, the danger there is very limited. Baekhyun has more tricks stashed in his sleeves than the rest of us combined, and he is clever with them, so he will be fine. If he has not come back yet, the likeliest explanation is that he found something worth staying for and will surface shortly, and if she wants, we can simply go in and look for him now. That lands with everyone, and the tension in Cheongha's shoulders drops away. She shakes her head gently anyway and says that Baekhyun is surely fine, but that going to Dark Island to find him is where the problem starts. A problem. I look at her without following. She nods and tells me that all of us just came back from Dark Island, so we must have noticed something, and then she says it plainly. The Dark Island she stood on may not be the same Dark Island I stood on. Not the same one. My first thought is that there are multiple Dark Islands, and I am still stuck on that when the suspicious details I collected earlier line themselves up and answer for me. I tell her it does look that way. The plaza I was on was not empty, but at a generous count it held about 1,000 people. At the time I assumed most chiefs were still hanging back rather than walking straight in. Now that reading falls apart. All of them entered at essentially the same time I did, and our windows on the island overlapped for a good stretch. In a plaza that size, with a crowd that small, there is no version of events where we all failed to notice each other. Cheongha nods and confirms it from her side. While she was on Dark Island, she ran into Will, and nobody else from our group at all, which is precisely what set her thinking. I frown, working at why the Dark World would split Dark Island into several separate copies, and then the question turns over in my head and shows me its other face. Perhaps it is not several islands. Perhaps it is one island cut into pieces. I look up at the 3 of them and start describing what I saw. I ask whether the Dark Island they visited was a plaza-shaped safe zone with a guiding tablet and 6 black towers standing on it. I also ask whether a gray murk full of powerful monsters lay outside the boundary. Cheongha frowns thoughtfully and answers point by point. The Dark Island she and Will were on did have an enormous plaza and a guiding tablet and a monster-filled wilderness outside its edge. Inside the plaza's range, not only were monsters unable to enter, humans could not attack each other either, which confirms the rule I had already guessed at from Min Cho. But their plaza had no 6 black towers. Theirs had 2. Then she stops, because she has arrived at the same place I have. I nod and tell her she has it. We were never on different Dark Islands. We were in different areas of the same one. Dark Island is divided into sections, and each person gets assigned to a different section, which is exactly why none of us crossed paths. What I still cannot say is whether those sections map onto the positions of our Black Islands, or whether the assignment is simply random. Nor do I know whether reaching each other's sections means crossing that wilderness full of monsters. Cheongha shuts the idea down flat. She tells me that crossing a wilderness packed with monsters is close to impossible, because the things prowling around in there look like legendary rank existences at the very least. She adds that the distance is not even the point. One careless brush with a single monster is enough to leave somebody badly hurt. The others murmur their agreement with her, and Will backs her with a serious face. He points out that the plan would only work if all 5 of us stood in the same area and could fight shoulder to shoulder as a team. Right now we are scattered across separate areas, and the other chiefs are not people any of us would trust at our backs. I look at Will and the rest of them and nod, dropping the option there. I tell them that sailing the Black Island out to gather everyone in one place is not much better because one of our biggest advantages is the manual's long-distance teleportation. The moment we park all our black islands in the same sea area of the dark world, that advantage of instant reinforcement is gone. Cheongha nods lightly and admits it is true, then says that leaves us exploring our own separate dark islands alone. I smile and shake my head, and tell her nobody said anything about alone. I remind them we still have the mutual aid contract's teleportation function. I only said we cannot control our black islands together in one sea area, and I never said we cannot teleport to each other on Dark Island. The expressions around the table change all at once. Cheongha blurts out that it is impossible, that Dark Island disables the manual's functions, and then she stops halfway through her own sentence, because she has already caught the problem herself. I tell her she has just answered her own objection. For some unknown reason, Dark Island disables the manual, but our teleportation is granted by the mutual aid contract, which makes it an item ability. Dark Island has not disabled the use of items. They all feel the logic works, and still feel that something about it is off. Cheongha cannot help shaking her head, saying that if Dark Island went so far as to disable the manual itself, then how much more likely it is to disable a contract's teleportation. I only smile and ask how we will ever know without trying, since we lose nothing by testing it. If it works, there is far too much we can do with it. They nod at that, agreeing that the mutual aid contract has handed us too many surprises already, and that maybe it will not disappoint us this time either. We may as well spend this window going to Dark Island to find out. I add a second thing we have to verify. If one of them pulls me into a different Dark Island area, then the next time I leave and enter again, which area do I appear in? My original assigned area or the one I was pulled into? If it puts me back in my assigned area, then the teleportation function effectively lets us travel between several different areas at will. If it locks me to the area I was pulled into, our explorable space shrinks down to almost nothing. The Dark Island areas are not identical. The number of black towers on each of them varies, and those are completely different black towers, every one of them unlocked only by conquering a certain number of worlds. They are the most fundamental existences in the entire Dark World. If we can operate across multiple areas, we can reach more black towers. That could get us closer to the truth of the Dark World, and from there we break out of its control, or even turn around and control it. Neither one is impossible. So I very much hope that once I come back from Dark Island, the next entry drops me right back into the area I was first assigned. We have to try it before we do anything else. Spending hours worrying, only to learn that the mutual aid contract's teleportation cannot be used on Dark Island at all, would be too disheartening for words. I give a self-deprecating little smile and lay out the order of operations for Cheonga and the others. All of us return to Dark Island together. They apply to teleport to me first while I look for a location, and once I have a suitable spot I accept the applications and pull them across. Then I give them the count. My Dark Island area has 6 black towers. The areas Chungha and Will landed in have only 2 apiece, and 09's area has 3. For now mine holds the most, so even if we end up stuck in my area, 6 black towers are more than enough to keep us busy. Baekhyun still has not sent word, but I doubt his area beats mine. Nobody hesitates any longer. We pick up our manuals, turn to the 10th page, and return to Dark Island together. Only a brief moment seems to pass. The next second I am standing in a familiar space, under that sunless yet oddly bright and oppressive sky. The 6 black high-rises, the plaza and the stone monument are all where I left them. The crowd has not thinned at all, and if anything it is slowly growing. I check my body over with some curiosity, and find that regaining consciousness went much faster than the first time. My body must be adapting to the process of teleporting here. The first time I came across I was lying flat on the ground, and this time I have kept the exact posture I held before the jump. It went through in an instant. Cheongha's teleportation request arrives almost as soon as my head clears, asking whether I agree, and Will's and 09's follow right behind it. My eyes light up. I can actually receive teleportation requests, which means the function bundled into the mutual aid contract works even here on Dark Island. That is genuinely absurd. Every time I decide the mutual aid contract has shown me its ceiling, it turns around and rewrites my understanding again, and by now the repetition has built up a certain resistance in me. I let myself be surprised for about a second, then put the contract out of my mind and start hunting for a place to bring them in. This is not my territory. There are a great many chiefs milling around, and casually lighting up a teleportation array to haul 3 people out of thin air would be extremely conspicuous. I would rather not collect that much attention just yet, so I sweep the plaza looking for somewhere out of sight, and find that there are people absolutely everywhere. What exactly are all of them wandering around for? Feeling more than a little helpless, I turn my gaze toward the only stretch of ground with nobody standing on it, the wilderness. I look at that grayish-black mist with visibility under 10 meters and stay silent for a few seconds. Legendary-level monsters are all over that place. My strength has climbed a fair amount lately, but running into a legendary-level monster with that kind of visibility could still get me killed. I grit my teeth and walk toward the mist anyway, doing the math as I go. So many people went in earlier, and it still took several minutes before a single monster was drawn to them. I am one man borrowing the dark just long enough to pull 3 people through. My luck should not be that bad. I check once more that nobody is paying attention to me, then plunge in. The instant I cross the line, a thin layer of grayish-black mist wraps around me. I feel myself out carefully and find my body completely normal. No weakening effect, no damage of any kind, and I let out a breath. Without hesitating further, I approve all 3 transfer requests. A teleportation array blooms out of empty air in front of me, and Cheongha, Will, and 09 step out of it one after another. Cheongha looks at me with delighted surprise and says it really works. As long as we can stand in the same area, none of us cares how dangerous Dark Island is. Even expecting the contract's teleportation to function, seeing the 3 of them actually walk out of that array puts a grin on my face. I tell them that since we can gather, there is no problem left worth naming. Conquering worlds, clearing mandatory missions, exploring the Dark Island wilderness, cracking that mysterious black tower, we can do all of it together from now on. Cheongha smiles and agrees, laying out the arithmetic. Each of us contributes a portion of resources to draw world beacon fragments, and with 5 people pooling, we might assemble a complete world beacon outright. Duplicates can be traded off to other people. On that pace, it should take only a few days before we can attempt a world. Her words put a spark in everybody, and in me most of all. My mandatory mission is to conquer an orange rank world or higher, and the weight of that has been sitting on me. Having a real path to it finally lets me breathe. A beast's roar cuts across the conversation. I react before I finish processing it, stepping in front of the 3 of them with my right hand already on the spirit-nurturing jar at my waist, eyes locked on the source. I tell everyone to be careful, watch their surroundings, avoid getting flanked, and fall back slowly toward the safe zone. We are at the very lip of the wilderness, no more than 100 meters from the plaza. I had not expected anything to be drawn to us that fast at that short a distance. So the monsters spawn at random. Even hugging the safe zone is not truly safe. We form up back to back and retreat, and we have covered maybe 20 meters when it comes. A wolf-headed man monster bursts out of the mist, hunched over and running on 2 legs, saying nothing, eyes gone red, launching itself straight at us. Between the visibility and its speed, it is nearly on top of us by the time any of us has fully turned. We have all weathered bigger storms than this, so nobody panics. And fast as the thing is, it is not beyond what the 4 of us can handle. In a flash, I summon a swarm of ants across its path. The black scythe hunting ants come up like a city wall, and the wolf-headed man monster bites down into solid bone, nearly shattering its own teeth for the trouble. I am about to send the ants forward to finish it, when somebody beats me to it. A rush of wind, a figure streaking past. A flash of red light, and the next second the monster's head is off its shoulders. It is Will, who had been standing behind me, and that red light is his bloodthirsty battle axe. One swing, one beheading. He turns with the axe on his shoulder and grins, saying that charging into battle is a warrior's job, and I give him a thumbs up and tell him it was well done. That kill looked easy from the outside, blocked cleanly by me and deleted instantly by Will. But the feedback coming back through the black scythe hunting ants tells another story. That scruffy, wretched, unimpressive wolf-headed man monster had actually reached upper diamond rank. It is not as terrifying as the upright wolf-headed man I saw in the wilderness before, the one at full legendary rank strength. Paired with this mist, though, it appears and vanishes on nobody's schedule but its own. An ordinary chief walking into that ambush would be carried out in pieces. Will one-shotting something that tricky says his strength has climbed a long way too. I tell Will to grab the body so we can head back and plan properly, because the wilderness area is simply too dangerous. A random encounter here comes at upper diamond rank. The good news is that the place is not wall-to-wall legendary level monsters, but that is no reason to relax. Will nods and agrees, then bends down to collect the corpse for study and freezes mid-motion. Where the wolf-headed man monster's body should be lying there is only blood-soaked earth. The body is nowhere at all. In its place sits a red jade shard. Will knows this kind of shard on sight because it is a red world beacon fragment. As an experienced hunter, he is absolutely certain the corpse was right there and that nothing unusual happened while he turned. Now the body is evaporated and a fragment is sitting in the dirt where it was. That leaves exactly one conclusion. Monsters killed in the wilderness turn into world beacon fragments. Will lifts the red fragment for everyone to see and asks what we all make of it. I already caught his pickup motion and guessed the origin the moment he raised it, and the answer fills the 4 of us with a very specific kind of joy. We had assumed world beacon fragments could only be obtained by trading resources away or by scraping through the wilderness soil hunting for them. Killing wilderness monsters yields them too. That is excellent news. Killing things in this environment is brutally risky, but for a group with teammates it can actually trust. It is the single best way to gather beacons. More roars come rolling out of the deep mist, so I cut the discussion short and hurry everyone into teleporting out. We use the return function on our manuals and land back in our own shelters. The moment I am home, I message all 3 of them, telling them to return to Dark Island and count the black towers on the plaza. The tower count is the cleanest fingerprint an area has, so counting them tells you immediately which area you were dropped into. The replies come back a short while later, and all 3 of them landed in the areas they first entered. Xiongha reports 2 black towers on her plaza and says she is back in her original area, not the area I dragged them into. I cannot help smiling at that. It means the area you did on Dark Island is tied to the sea area where your own Black Island sits, and that we can work several Dark Island areas at the same time. Then I ask them what the entry conditions are for the lowest requirement Black Tower in each of their areas. Xiongha says her 2 towers demand 50 conquered worlds and 70 conquered worlds. 09 says her 3 want 25, 30, and 35. The size of those numbers genuinely startles me. My area carries 6 black towers, and the cheapest one only asks for 7 conquered worlds. Nothing like the numbers coming out of Xiongha's area. So the more black towers an area holds, the lower the entry bar sits on each of them, which makes my area the easiest place in the Dark World to reach a black tower's core. I ask next about the mandatory quests, and tell them mine casually enough that I have to conquer an orange level world or higher. Their answers come back in a row. One has to kill 100 units of creatures from other worlds, and one has to synthesize a complete world econ. 09 has to conquer any world at all. I smile helplessly at the spread. Their difficulty varies, but even the hardest of the 3 only demands any world, which means any red level world qualifies, and not one of them touches mine. That is good news in its own way. I do not have to worry about their quests, only about my own. I tell them that since it works out that way, clearing my quest clears everyone else's on the same trip, which is convenient. But I still need to know Baekhyun's situation, where that guy has run off to nobody knows, and he has not replied to anything. We wait until he comes back from Dark Island before we start the operation, and in the meantime we put together a basic plan of action. Killing monsters in the wilderness drops world beacon fragments, so for now we do not need to donate resources at all. We go into the wilderness as a group, kill things, and pick up fragments along the way. The complication is the legendary level monsters in there, and there are quite a few of them. We stay focused on killing diamond rank creatures, and only once we can put down a legendary rank creature without taking damage do we start hunting legendary level monsters on purpose. Xiongha raises a fair objection. If we restrict ourselves to diamond rank monsters, the supply may be thin, since diamond rank things might only spawn near the plaza edge. And once other chiefs work out that monsters drop world beacon fragments, the competition on that edge will get vicious fast. I answer with a smile that it does not matter, because we can operate across several areas, even confined to the plaza edge every time. The ground we can cover dwarfs what anyone else can reach. I tell her that working that misty wilderness is not a job one person can do. By the time the other chiefs finish slowly building trust with each other and start moving, we will already be sitting on every fragment the early stage requires. Once we have a few worlds conquered, we push deeper into the wilderness and hunt legendary level monsters, which also puts distance between us and the crowd fighting over the edge. Xiongha relaxes at that and says she has no problems with the plan. I tell them we move the moment Baekhyun surfaces, though time is tight, so if he has not come out inside 3 hours, we go without him. Everyone agrees. Preparations start immediately. I make a quick round of the various ant queens, collecting the mature combat ants they have just finished cultivating into my spirit nurturing jar, then head to the core of my territory. The regional map after the Great Vortex event is a strange thing to look at. In the whole area there is exactly one black island, mine, marked at 140 units, sitting there in complete isolation. There is nothing else. Every other black island was either annexed by me or swallowed by an instance or by the vortex, which leaves me the only chief left standing in the region. I stand there staring at the map and specifically at its edges. The space beyond the boundary used to be pure black, absolutely nothing visible in it. Now that blackness has turned into a hazy gray. Does that mean the regional lockdown has been lifted? Can I sail my black island into every area of the Dark World now? Dark Island may be open, but I have not forgotten that the sea area of the Dark World is the main stage where all chiefs compete. Dark Island forbids chiefs from fighting each other after all. Both sides need work. Dark Island matters enormously, and the sea cannot be neglected either. Every region out there holds at least one chief whose Black Island has crossed 100 units. Taking down any one of them would come close to doubling my territory's population and its resources. The thought puts a definite edge of excitement in me. With this many resource-devouring mouths at home, no amount of resources is ever enough for me. I currently field thousands of main battle ants, and counting the sentry ants which eat far less, the total sits in the tens of thousands. All of them diamond rank. It is still nowhere near enough. If I had the resources to raise hundreds of thousands of diamond rank ants, or millions of them, I could probably sweep the Dark World flat by myself. I look at the gray in every direction on that map, the way a man looks at soil with treasure buried under it. My black island sits in the southern border region of the Dark World by default, so the sensible route is a clockwise sweep around the outer sea and then a gradual push toward the center. After a moment's thought, I kick the western border and set the black island sailing. On the map, it moves fast enough to watch with the naked eye. 140 units of island carrying an item that multiplies supersonic sailing tenfold makes for an astonishing speed. Even so, I started near the center of the region beside the vortex, and reaching the outermost border will still take more than 10 days. The sea area of the Dark World is simply that vast. An hour slips by before my manual rings. Is that Baekhyun? There are still 3 hours until the time I agreed on with Cheongha and the others, and only one has passed, so it should not be any of the three of them. I pick up the manual and it is Baekhyun after all. He apologizes for the silence, saying he ran into something on Dark Island, and that when he went to leave he discovered the manual's functions do not work inside, which he calls an absolute ripoff. I ask him what exactly happened, since Dark Island only holds so much, and there should not be anything to get tangled in. He sighs and admits that logically that is true. Then he tells me that somebody in his area went into the wilderness, killed a monster, and watched it drop a world beacon fragment. After that, everyone lost their minds. They poured into the wilderness like starving dogs onto a dropped steak, close to 200 people by his count. With that many going in, he was not about to be the one who chickened out, so he followed them. That surprises me. I had not expected the discovery we made an hour ago to be found and spread by other people so quickly. Thinking it through though, it makes sense because Dark Island is packed with powerful individuals, and information like that was never going to stay quiet for long. I am not especially disappointed either because the wilderness area is not that simple. With that many legendary rank creatures inside, and an environment that complicated, a mob rushing in as a mob does not solve anything. Baekhyun confirms it. All those chiefs, the weakest of them at diamond rank, were unstoppable on the way in. Even when a legendary level monster showed up, it did not gain an advantage, and although they could not blast it to death outright, they wounded it badly enough that it fled. Then the noise they made caught up with them. 5 legendary level monsters arrived at once and killed 3 chiefs on the spot, and the survivors took heavy losses, read the situation, and scattered in every direction. 5 legendary rank creatures. I cannot help drawing a sharp breath at that. At this stage, 1 legendary rank creature is already brutally difficult to deal with, and 5 stacked on top of each other is despair with legs. The fact that only 3 people died is a testament to how strong those chiefs are and how many life-saving tricks they carry. I shake my head and say what I am thinking, that these people clawed their way out of a million rivals only to die of their own greed. Then I ask him what he was actually doing in there, because he cannot possibly have gone in just to enjoy the show. Baekhyun says he does not do anything without a benefit attached. He tells me they charged in to kill monsters with their eyes red, and people in that state lose most of their powers of observation. So he trailed along behind them and noticed a great many fragments buried in the shallow surface soil of the wilderness. He quietly picked up quite a few of them. There is even that kind of angle. I am a little impressed, and thinking about it, it holds up. Between the visibility in there and the constant pressure of monsters that can show up at any second, almost nobody would ever spot fragments sitting under the dirt. In any case, it is good that he found a way to profit off the stampede. I ask him straight out how many he collected in total, because if it is enough on top of what the rest of us are holding, we might assemble a complete world beacon. He plays it down. He tells me it is honestly not many, because if it were, it would never have been his turn to keep finding what everyone else overlooked. The monsters almost always drop a fragment when they die, so he suspects the buried ones came from monsters killed there before. He puts the total at 8 fragments and insists it is nothing worth mentioning. His idea of not many is doing a great deal of work. With the 3 he was already holding, the man is in double digits, and among every chief currently alive, he is near the top for fragment count, if not simply first. I shake my head at him and tell him to stop humble bragging and to bring the fragments over in 10 minutes. I will call Chuha and the others and we pool everything we have to see whether we can assemble a complete world beacon, and if we can, we go straight out to explore a world. He agrees cheerfully and cuts the call. I never expected this little imp's idle scavenging to accelerate our fragment collection this hard. The original plan is already in pieces. 10 minutes later, Baekhyun and the other 3 walk into my shelter together. After a short exchange, we put every world beacon fragment we own on the table. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple shards scatter across the surface. The instant the last of them lands, several of the red fragments begin drifting slowly toward the center on their own, piecing themselves together into one complete world beacon. The finished red world beacon is palm-sized, a round red gemstone chip, and genuinely beautiful. What actually holds our attention is what it can do. I pick it up with a small smile and say out loud that we really did assemble a complete world beacon. It is only red, but red is the most practical thing we could have gotten right now. Baekhyun and the others agree with that. None of us has any idea how strong other worlds are, and a red level world is the perfect place to test the water. I waste no time and tell Baekhyun to go to the guiding stele and accept a mission so we can use this beacon together and enter a red level world. He is a bit taken aback and asks whether it has to be that urgent. I shake my head gently and tell him a quick start leads to sustained speed. Our strength is nowhere near its peak, but with the 5 of us working together, we are not going to be wiped out in a red level world. There is a real reason to go look first. Entering the Black Tower only requires a certain number of conquered worlds, with no requirement whatsoever on their quality. If conquering a different world turns out to be difficult and unrewarding, then aside from the mandatory missions, there is no point touching high-level worlds at all. In that case, we take advantage of everyone else's ignorance and trade our high-level world beacon fragments away for low-quality beacons. Information at the right moment is worth a fortune. Baekhyun says he will pick up a mission now, and before he leaves, I ask how many black towers stand on the plaza in his Dark Island area. He thinks there are 7, if he remembers correctly. That number makes me lower my head. I had thought 6 black towers in my area was already a lot, and it turns out there are areas holding more. The more towers an area has, the fewer conquered worlds its cheapest tower demands, and mine asks for 7. I ask him what the entry condition is on the shortest black tower in his area. He scratches around for an answer and admits that he never looked closely. He was too busy getting swept up in the scavenging, and he looks a little embarrassed about it. No matter how low the requirement is, entering any black tower still means conquering a stack of worlds first, so waiting a while longer costs us nothing. I smile and tell him it does not matter, that we will look when we get back, and that first we go see what a red level different world actually is. Baekhyun rubs his hands together and nods, saying he is genuinely curious what is inside a different world, and that we should set off quickly. Chung-ha and the others look just as expectant. Our home planet was Blue Star, and the Dark World itself was already a different world to us, the only one any of us had ever touched. Hearing that there are others out there makes curiosity unavoidable. Chung-ha wonders aloud whether Little Green's home planet is somewhere among them. Then she answers herself, because a world with a world tree in it has to be a very high-level different world, and a red-level world will not have one. The picture forms in her head anyway, a world with plants as its main inhabitants, drowning in lush green and vivid red, flowers and plants and trees over everything. At the very center of it stands a gigantic world tree, unimaginably vast and as old as the world itself, with countless elves living inside it as its Will. Will is imagining something different, a world stuffed with powerful beasts, where he can conquer every high-grade beast in reach, and haul his own strength up with them. 09 naturally pictures herself arriving in a world full of mechanical elements and walking out with technologies nobody here has seen. Baekhyun does not even bother hiding it. His eyes are full of nothing but longing for rare treasures. Looking around at those expressions, I have to pour cold water on them. I tell them not to imagine different worlds as anything that pleasant. The missions the Dark World issues and the entry conditions for the Black Tower both use the words conquer and subdue. To a different world, we are not merely outsiders from beyond the sky. We are strangers, heretics and invaders, and neither the natives nor the world will of that place is going to get along with us. That land's like a bucket of ice water and most of them go quiet. Will and Baekhyun come out fine, since one of them wants to kill and the other wants to plunder, and neither has any peaceful notions about making friends or borrowing technology. If anything, they get more excited. Baekhyun says there's nothing left to talk about, and we should simply do it. I nod and tell them we have no idea how long conquering a different world will take, so we take half an hour to pack and prepare, and I will summon them from my side when it is up. They agree, split back to their own shelters and start their pre-battle preparations. While we are quietly gearing up for a red instance, the other chiefs are not idle either. The ones without fixed organizations have already flooded the world channel with recruitment, and the whole feed is a wall of team-up notices. One mid-level diamond rank chief demands equal strength, or lower diamond rank with a special ability. A group calling itself the Dark Alliance advertises upper diamond rank leadership, and 32 members spread across Dark Island's areas. Under a string of fragment for fragment swap offers, an early warning specialist offers to halve the danger for any wilderness scavenging team of 8 or more, in exchange for 30% of everything it collects. Somebody sneers that he may as well just rob them, and he fires back that having the casualties is worth every point of it. The channel is louder than it has been in months, and for a moment it feels like the first days after we all landed in the Dark World. The difference is that every single person talking now commands tens of thousands of vassals. Beyond the handful of chiefs promoting themselves and hunting for reliable teammates, there are others sitting the noise out entirely. We are among them, because we made our preparations long ago and already belong to organizations of our own. Nobody in that position crams at the last minute for unreliable strangers off a public channel. In a grand hall lined with dozens of giant statues, a figure sits alone on the highest seat, radiating golden light. His features blurred past recognition. He looks down over the statues in silence. He reflects that after one round of activities, the Alliance of Gods that once counted over 100 members is down to a mere 46. The Alliance of Gods has no use for fallen waste. 46 is less than half of its peak strength, and yet every man left is an elite among elites, who fought his way clear of hundreds of chiefs from an entire region. Now, at last, they can be put to use. This golden figure is the God King who controls the Alliance of Gods. That 46 survived a competition that brutal is remarkable on its own. What matters more is that the vast majority of the dozens who died had their spiritual bodies drained by the God's token. All that pure spiritual power became sustenance for him. The aura coming off him now is terrifying past description. There is not another living thing in the hall, yet the air keeps rippling under the golden pressure pouring out of him. He looks one step short of breaking through to legendary rank, and his climb has been far faster than mine. Whatever hidden side effects that unorthodox ability carries, the speed it grants is first rate. He taps the armrest of his chair lightly with his right hand and lets his gaze drift across the statues below, and it lingers half a second longer on one of them. It is an ant, with a long upper jaw, a ferocious build, and an oppressive presence. That statue belongs to my alias, Destruction Dragon Ant. Ever since I used the alias to kill off the thug Jang Hyun the God King disliked so much, Destruction Dragon Ant has been drawing a great deal of his attention. He nods, satisfied, and speaks softly, ordering every world beacon fragment held by the Alliance of Gods gathered into his hands, so the next step of the operation can proceed. He rises and opens his arms toward the statues in something like an embrace. Countless threads of golden light spill off him and settle over every statue below, until each one wears a faint golden coat. His indifferent voice begins echoing through the hall, carried out through the statues to every member of the Alliance of Gods. He orders them all to exchange their resources for world beacon fragments and to trade every fragment to the God of Slaughter. The God of Slaughter is the codename of a chief the God King is completely corrupted and brainwashed, and functions as his proxy. The reason he routes everything through that man is his own sense of mystery. Direct transactions would expose the God King's name, and his name is the biggest, deepest secret he keeps. He is not about to spend it carelessly. He believes every remaining member of the Alliance has been successfully brainwashed by the subconscious suggestions he planted, but caution and prudence are the first principles he never abandons. The replies arrive fast, and world beacon fragments start flowing to him through the God of Slaughter. He tosses them onto the stone table beside him as they come, jade clicking against jade, until over 200 fragments in every color cover the surface. Then colored light flares across the table, and the pieces begin drifting toward each other and merging on their own. Before long, there are 7 or 8 complete beacons sitting there, and members are still sending more. Even the God King's eyes brighten, and a slight smile crosses that blurred face. This is the power of an alliance. Then he frowns. Many members answered him and sent their fragments in, but roughly 10 of them are out of contact, and among those 10 is Destruction Dragon Ant. He does not dwell on it. He murmurs that they must have entered Dark Island, since that area is a strange one, where not only the manual fails to function, but even his spiritual power transmission cannot penetrate it. He turns back to the beacons on the table and says it is time to begin. The Alliance of Gods is not the only organization moving. The Baek family the House Baekhyun leans on is stirring as well. Their own strength is not weak, but including Baekhyun, only 5 people under their command came out of the Great Vortex event as winners.